Joanna? As soon as this blonde beauty appeared, she immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the room. Not because of her looks, but because of her identity. The head of the Global Beast Masters Association. Don't be too famous. Not only that, Joanna is also responsible for managing the association's foreign trade matters. To put it bluntly, this foreign girl is very rich. A proper rich woman. Beast Controllers Association? Yi Zhan did not immediately answer Joanna's words, but gave her a faint look. No respond. Don't agree, don't refuse. It means making her wait. Being able to manage a huge Beastmaster Chamber of Commerce and be responsible for the global exchange of apex-level divine weapons and supplies, Joanna's mind is naturally very bright. She just smiled at Yi Zhan and waited quietly. Under Joanna's body, the golden flying eagle gently swayed its wide wings, which were beautiful and beautiful. Every time it waved its wingspan, it could cause strong magic fluctuations. 79 billion health points. 9 million four-dimensional attributes. Yi Zhan muttered silently in his heart. He didn't respond to Joanna. Naturally, he was looking at the template he had just obtained and the massive four-dimensional attribute points. Too exaggerated. After all, Inuyama Gamoto is a demigod with more than 7,000 levels. Whether it is health, four-dimensional attributes, skills, expertise, or even forbidden spells, he can be called a rich resource library, which can increase Yi Zhan's strength countless times in one breath. Certainly, there are also some nice pieces of equipment. It can be called a divine weapon-like existence. Holy Seal Magic Dragon Authority, Shikigami Robe. Things from the island country are bad luck. Yi Zhan laughed coldly and threw the two things at Joanna. Ah, Joanna's delicate little face was stunned. Does your association recycle these things? Yi Zhan said lightly. Receive. Joanna nodded hurriedly. She had witnessed with her own eyes a series of operations Yi Zhan had just performed. How could she not learn anything about this kind of existence? What's more, these items from Sakura Yin Yang Shikigami are really good. Yi Zhan doesn't want it. It doesn't mean that other demigod professionals don't like it. Can we always recycle waste? Let's go, Yi Zhan said something. Then, behind him, the bosses, or pet beasts, all disappeared. Whether it was the elf sacred deer or the infernal dragon, they all disappeared out of thin air in an instant. This scene made Joanna stunned again on the spot. Hiss. Space forbidden spell? Joanna felt like her worldview was shattered. Originally, he thought that the bosses summoned by Yi Zhan were just some kind of illusion similar to heroic spirits. This method is common in the world of universal job transfer. Even, some necromancers can summon ancient skulls from the abyss world. However, the magic fluctuation just now made Joanna a little confused. As the high-level administrator of the Beast Tamer Association, she is very sure that these bosses do not seem to be illusions. It's something that really exists. The moment they disappeared, everything turned into a stream of light, rushing towards Kai Yeshuen. That is to say, there are more than 300 Apex-level bloodline bosses. Are these really Yi Zhan's pet beasts? All Apex-level pets. Each bloodline is stronger than the other, various SSR levels. Are they all pets of the devil? Hiss, what's going on? Joanna swallowed hard and couldn't close her mouth. She just stared at Yi Zhan blankly, stunned. At this time, Yi Zhan had already left the school waving the flame demon wings. Behind him, Zhang Taiyan and Su Mei, like the attendants following the monarch, also hurriedly followed. Joanna shook her head, without thinking too much, and immediately followed Zhang Taiyan's footsteps. Ahem. Inside the school. The shepherd, who had a curvy figure and was wearing a pair of black silk stockings with overlapping legs, coughed slightly and said with a smile. It seems that we have to wait for a while. Not only the god of shepherd, but also the god of Dharma Shen Choei smiled bitterly. The Beast Controllers Association. Giant organizations like this are here. The two women looked at each other, both of them a little embarrassed to say anything. Joanna's status is much higher than that of Shen Choei and others. Not only is the strength strong enough, but the level is high enough. 013503025 Filu 210,332,410. The resources in hand are overwhelming. Rumor has it that there are 7 pet beasts tamed by Joanna in total, and each one can easily torture a being like a fawn. Wait a little longer. Fine. Bai Shen said calmly. This is the first time Bai Shen and the others have seen this kind of thing. They, who are considered apex-level dignitaries in the Great Shalong Kingdom, had to wait quietly for a high school student. Speaking of which, it is indeed a bit fanciful, but there's really nothing we can do now. Joanna visited Yi Zan alone. If she tried to talk to him at this time, Yi Zan might not really pay attention to him, Bai Shen and others. To put it mildly, who do you think you are? Sakura Shikigami was tortured to pieces. It's just a little white god, what does it matter? After finalizing the plan, Bai Shen, Shen Choewi and others naturally did not stay in the school and ran towards the city center. However, they did not follow Yi Zan. On the one hand, this is not very polite. On the other hand, since they came to Zhanghai City, they naturally had some other things to do. It's considered a layout in advance. Find official organizations such as the Zhanghai City Job Transfer Temple and the Mage Association, and simply state your intention. Explain. In the apartment, Yi Zan had returned to his professional body, leaning on the back of the sofa and looking at Joanna indifferently. The room is not too big. Zhang Taian and Su Mei could only stand. As for Joanna, she was stunned for a moment and sat down beside Yi Zan gracefully. On behalf of the Global Beast Masters Association, I would like to invite the demon god to go to the winter dungeon to slay the dragon. Joanna has a beautiful voice. The information in the words was quite explosive. Zhang Taian and Su Mei's eyes twitched. Kill the dragon. Winter copy. Also known as the Second World. Even though it is called a dungeon, just like the Abyss, it is an existence that is countless times larger than the world of universal job transfer. Such a huge area with almost no borders. What's even more frightening is that it is full of various NPCs, or in this world's definition, alien races. The plot of the Winter Dungeon is quite classic, of Lee's. The most core content is naturally the Golden Smaug. In the legend, the mythical dragon is called the Golden Tyrant. Do you have tickets for winter? Yi Zan looked slightly surprised. He originally planned to challenge the Winter Dungeon, but unfortunately, he didn't have tickets. Golden Smaug is as famous as Black Dragon Boss. They are considered to be some of the most famous bosses in the entire world. In a sense, he is more famous than Seraph. Yes. Joanna bit her lower lip, thinking carefully about her words. There was silence for a while. She looked at Yi Zan and said, "Not just ordinary tickets, we have a large number of customized tickets. You can go directly to the forbidden area where Golden Smaug is. You can even get in touch with the gray-robed mage Ilex. As well as the elf princess imprisoned in the tower. The only successor to the Saint Laurent Empire. Elise. The imprisoned elf princess." Yi Zan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows after hearing Joanna's words. The situation in the Winter Dungeon world is actually not complicated. This world. In the south, there is an extremely powerful dragon, the Golden Smaug. A true god-level boss. Countless years ago, it had been successfully promoted to level 10,000. In fact, this giant dragon is currently only in its infancy. There is also unlimited potential for growth. As for the elf princess Elise, she was a plaything imprisoned in the tower by Smaug. Of course, what bad intentions can a dragon have? It's just that the Saint Laurent Empire in the south once set fire to Smaug's lair. This evil dragon just took revenge. In other words, the tickets obtained by your association can directly ignore the Golden Tyrant realm buff, and appear directly in Smaug's lair. Yi Zan looked at Joanna, wanting to get her approval. That's right. Don't worry about the tyrant buff. Joanna smiled slightly. Yi Zan couldn't help but take a deep breath of cold air. The NPC empire behind elf princess Elise is called the Saint Laurent Empire. This is not a simple country. Unlike fairy tales, this is the real kingdom of Saint Emperor. There are not only 10,000 level Magisters 040 but also 10,000 level God Knights. And even, the most exaggerated thing is, there is also an extremely powerful iron-blooded army in the empire, all of which are apex level forbidden knights. This army is invincible in the Winter Dungeon, except for some, including the Elf Empire, the Dwarf Empire, and the Orc Empire, which can compete with them. Others, facing the Forbidden Knight army, they were all defeated. However, even for such a powerful empire, there is still nothing that can be done against Golden Smaug. In the final analysis, the reason is the so-called Golden Tyrant buff, which is like a bug in the game world. All NPCs cannot penetrate this Air Wall, the monarch of the Saint Laurent Empire, tried every means, even offering bounties of various divine weapons and forbidden spells, in order to solve the defense of the dragon's forbidden land. Finally, all ended in failure. But now, Joanna and the others have tickets that can directly go to Smaug's lair. It really shocked Yi Zhan. Look at it from another perspective. In other words, Yi Zhan and the others can accomplish things that even the 10,000 level aborigines in the NPC Empire cannot accomplish. You can also get in touch with Elise, the elf princess. 10,000 level magician, divine knight. Yi Zhan's eyes couldn't help but flicker. The classic plot of the Winter Dungeon was introduced in great detail in high school textbooks, and he was already familiar with it. Many high school students have had a slightly innocent vision. If there is a chance to rescue the elf princess imprisoned in the tower by the evil dragon, it will take off directly in the future. What equipment, what forbidden spell, potion, non-existent. With the NPC Empire on his back, he became the son-in-law of a level 10,000 NPC. In the future, he will take charge of an entire forbidden army. It's exciting just thinking about it, unfortunately. These can only be regarded as daydreams after all. Let's not talk about how to fight against the 10,000 level Golden Smaug boss. The strength and ferocity of this evil dragon boss are much higher than its reputation. In fact, many professionals spend their entire lives unable to see such a level of existence. Secondly, even if Princess Elise is really rescued, he may not necessarily become the son-in-law of the Empire. This thing always depends on the face, unless he's handsome. Even the elf princess couldn't control it. Yi Zhan raised his eyelids slightly and couldn't help but smile lightly, his eyes flashing with a little cunning. Just because others can't do it, doesn't mean he can't do it. We have all come to a world where everyone changes jobs, and elves and NPCs can also be contacted. Interesting. However, Yi Zhan actually had 2 tickets on hand that he had not used yet. One was for the elf world and the other 10 were for the demonic abyss. If we can win over the Saint Laurent Empire, with the assistance of 10,000 level magicians, plus the elf world, CFFG, those demons in the abyss. Yi Zhan thought secretly for a while and had some ideas of his own. According to Xu Yue, in 3 years, the natural disaster of the undead will come. That disaster is something that is difficult to rewrite in the original, life script, plot. That is to say, the world where everyone changes jobs will be shattered in an instant under the impact of the undead natural disaster. The whole world ceased to exist. But, what if it was the Saint Laurent Empire? What if it were the 72 demon god pillars and the 7 original sins demon lords in the abyss? Another example. Where is the elf queen? If the power of these indigenous NPCs is blessed, perhaps, even in the face of undead natural disasters, there will not be the slightest shake? Look at it simply. The so-called natural disaster of the undead is just a catastrophe in this transcendent world. In a worldview so vast that it has no boundaries, there must be a race or power that can easily cope with natural disasters. The only original sin is not natural disaster. It's that his own strength is not strong enough. Weak. That is original sin. Yi Zhan nodded slightly. He already had an extremely clear idea: he must go to the Winter Dungeon. Not only do you want to go, you must also gain something. A big enough gain. I can go. How many professionals are there in total to challenge the dungeon this time? Yi Zhan was silent for a while, then looked at Joanna and asked. What he cares about is not how many professionals go there, but how many people will share the rewards with him. The things you get from this world-level copy are not just potions or simple equipment. There are some extremely important items, and Yi Zhan must get the bulk of them. Otherwise, he would rather not go, or plunder. The Beast Masters Association has tickets. Well, grab it. Yi Zhan admits that he is not a good person. In troubled times, kill the virgin first. Now that he knows that there are customized tickets in the association behind Joanna, he cannot just watch these things fall into the hands of others. Yi Zhan does not intend to save the world. All he did was keep himself alive. If we all die in the end, so what does it matter if the group destroys your Beastmaster Association first? Not much. Joanna took a deep look at Yi Zhan and leaned back slightly. For some reason, she always felt like she was being targeted by a beast, like a prey. However, Yi Zhan's eyes did not seem to be coveting her body. It was a feeling that Joanna couldn't describe. When she thought of Yi Zan's 12-winged flame demon body just now, Joanna was frightened. She swallowed her saliva and hurriedly explained to Yi Zan patiently. After all, it is a world-level dungeon. The professionals who are going this time, the number can be said to be very small, with less than 100 professionals. Most of them are beastmasters. Only 100 professionals? After hearing Joanna's statement, Sumei couldn't restrain her inner shock and couldn't help but interject. 100. Even if this number is placed in some small copies, it is already quite a lot in places like shallow bays. But large copies? It's simply pitiful. Some diamond-level dungeons require at least more than 1,000 professionals to work together to defeat the dungeon boss. And for world level there are only 100 people like the Winter Dungeon? Incredible. It's normal. Joanna's expression was not displeased at all. She just smiled lightly, looked at Sumei and explained. The world-level dungeon is different from other dungeons. One reason is that the tickets are too rare. Can't get enough tickets. The second one is because, facing a 10,000 level boss, such as the god-level Smaug, ordinary professionals are no different from cannon fodder. Only apex-level professionals have the opportunity to challenge. The number does not determine whether they can challenge. The key to success. Sumei's eyes lit up slightly, nodded, so that's it. Okay. Yi Zan nodded. He already has his answer. I promise. What surprised Sumei was that Yi Zan did not ask any more questions but directly agreed. Huh? It's a bit different from Yi Shen's temperament. Sumei was confused. As for Zhang Taian, he glared at Sumei and signaled her to stop talking. Indeed. Yi Zan agreed too quickly this time. With his character, he wouldn't be so reckless. However, Li could not guess Yi Zan's plan at all. If it were some high-level dungeons in China, Yi Zan might have talked a little bit about other things, such as boss rewards. How much would he give to himself in the end? Facing Joanna from the Global Beast Masters Association, he had no need to say anything. How much is the final spoils? Joke, is it useful to say it now? Being weak is the original sin. If Yi Zan is not strong enough, this time, it is very likely that he will never come back. After the Beast Masters Association has used Yi Zan, they can throw him away. And what if Yi Zan is strong enough? It's so strong that it's outrageous. Then there is no need to talk about boss reward planning. How much does it cost? I want them all. As long as you are strong enough, you can ignore all laws. Your Majesty Demon God, I will send you detailed information later, including the attribution of this BS dollar reward. Seeing Yi Zan's immediate agreement, Joanna smiled extremely brightly and said happily, "This is the ticket to the Winter Dungeon. It is still in the cooling stage and will not be opened until 2 days later. I will go to the Winter World with you." Yi Zan nodded, taking the ticket from Joanna's hand. It looks ordinary, like a playing card. However, for such a gadget, the price on the market is ridiculously expensive. If it were the most common winter ticket, its price would be comparable to an epic piece of equipment, but the one in Yi Zan's hand was even more valuable, almost priceless. Being expensive also has its advantages. If everything goes well this time, Joanna, Yi Zan and the others may be able to get the legendary. Something far beyond epic gear, legendary equipment. Correct. Your Majesty Demon God, if you are interested, you can come and sit down at the Eagle Federation Association. Joanna tilted her head and said with a smile. As Beast Masters, we definitely have a lot to say. Joanna's long Mandarin is not very standard, it's even a bit unclear. In the old saying of the great Shalong Kingdom, it should be called, love and affection. Joanna narrowed her eyes and smiled. With a pop, Sumei choked on her saliva. Zhang Taian immediately glared at her. As for Yi Zan, he also coughed dryly. What a perfect match. No, we are like-minded. Joanna's face turned red, something suddenly occurred to her, and she explained desperately. Fine. Yi Zan waved his hand. Then let's do this for now. Contact me later. Joanna covered her face and nodded. Immediately, in front of her, a golden magic circle appeared out of thin air. The beautiful body flashed and disappeared into the Dharma Formation Minister. Yi Zan touched his nose. The apartment became quiet again. Your Majesty. Zhang Taian bowed slightly and looked at Yi Zan, as if waiting for Yi Zan's instructions. And his title also changed. Monarch, in fact, that's right. Yi Zan gave Zhang Taian and Su Meixin new lives, and they should indeed be monarchs. Go to Sakura first. Go and slay the dragon again. Yi Zan said lightly, his tone as cold as if he was going out to buy a garden. Okay. Zhang Tian nodded solemnly. Go get a teleportation scroll to Sakura. Yi Zan raised his chin. Su Mei nodded. It was natural for her to do this kind of thing. What's more, Su Mei herself manages these resources in Zhanghai City. They are all in the job transfer temple, snapped. As soon as she opened the door to the apartment, Su Mei let out a loud scream and was completely frightened. Zhang Tian frowned and hurriedly took a look. Result. He was also stunned. Excuse me. Is the demon god here? A pleasant voice sounded outside the apartment, making people feel numb and tingling, making people twitch their fingers. Yi Zan stood up and looked out the door. Standing at the door is none other than Great Shah's #1 Dharma god, Shen Choeui. This Dharma god, who can usually only be seen in TV programs or posters, appeared at Yi Zan's door today. Today, Shen Choeui is wearing a purple dress. Her looming curves and innate holy temperament make her look extremely bright and charming. Follow Yi Zan's gaze and look back. In addition to Shen Choeui, there are several female professionals with outstanding figures and looks. All of them are big figures who frequently appear in TV shows. Apex level dignitary. Certainly. The one standing at the end is estimated to be over 2 meters tall. He is dressed in white gold armor and has a golden spear on his back. Just looking at the appearance, he is indeed extremely domineering and intimidating. Shirakami. Great Shah's #1 professional. It exists like a ceiling. What's the matter? Yi Zan looked at Shen Choeui, then at Bai Shen at the back, and said in an indifferent tone. At the same time, his mental power has covered all the professionals. After being promoted to level 1000, Yi Zan found that even without using the power of the 12-winged flame demon, he could easily kill Bai Shen and others. As long as these so-called powerful people show a little bit of malice, Yi Zan would take action without hesitation. After all, Yang Tianchong's matter has not yet been resolved. No one is sure whether Bai Shen and the others are here to negotiate peace or to cause trouble, etc. Seeing that there were subtle magic fluctuations all over Yi Zan's body, and a familiar smell of forbidden spells filled the air, Shen Choeui was immediately shocked. She immediately opened her mouth slightly, raised her voice and said loudly, "Your Majesty the demon god. We no offense." Shen Choeui coughed several times. My heart was in my throat. Good guy. Everything that happened just now is still vivid in my mind. She didn't want to end up with Bai Shen and other professionals today. Yi Zan wants to kill them. Don't be too simple. What's the matter? Just tell me. Yi Zan frowned, already a little impatient. He didn't have much conflict with Shen Choeui and others. I just don't like ink very much. I want to visit the demon god. Do you have time? The shepherd added weakly. The entire corridor of the apartment was so quiet that one could hear a needle drop. Who would believe it? The domestic apex level dignitaries, these big shots with such big names and boundless names, were all turned away by Yi Zan and stood at the door politely. They also lined up in a row, just like primary school students listening to a lecture. Do not have time. Yi Zan glanced at Bai Shen and others. Get out of the way. Everyone trembled collectively. They all made way for each other. Zhang Tian. Go to the job transfer temple. Good. Yi Zan spoke lightly. With Zhang Tian and the two of them, we entered. Before leaving, Su Mei smiled politely at Bai Shen and the others, and said, "Give way a little, I want to close the door." After Yi Zan and the others left, Bai Shen and his party were all silent. Silence. Deafening. Who would have thought? Shirakami and the others came to visit, and were turned down. He was rejected on the spot. As for the job transfer temple, from a formal perspective, it is still managed by Shirakami and the others. It turns out, oh my god, for a moment, Shen Choeui felt like something was stuck in her throat. She was about to say something, but after thinking about it, she closed her mouth again. Aren't they going to Sakura country? A petite girl in the team said calmly. All of a sudden, the whole audience fell into deathly silence again. Even the heartbeats and breathing sounds of everyone became extremely heavy. Kill the Sakura god? Destroy the island nation? Damn it. With Yi Zan's attitude, it shouldn't be fake. It's just his expression just now. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like you're going to destroy the island country. It's more like taking friends, going out to drink some beer, and have a barbecue as casually as possible? Wait a little longer? Shen Choeui smiled bitterly. Broke the silence. Finally, Bai Shen let out a long sigh and said, "That's all." After Yi Zan left Bai Shen and others behind, he quickly arrived at the job transfer temple under the leadership of Su Mei. The lowest level of this landmark building. Yi, monarch, I found it. Su Mei used the authority to check it, and soon found the teleportation scroll to Sakura from the storage cabinet like a bookshelf. She bowed slightly and took the sheepskin scroll with both hands, dedicated to Yi Zan. Yi Zan took the scroll. Throw it away. In an instant, 3 golden circles suddenly appeared in the sky. Yi Zan remained silent, just wrapped up his clothes and stepped in. Su Mei and the other 2 hurriedly stepped into the golden circle. Japan, Sakura, Kyoto. It is late at night in the bustling Kyoto, but it is still brightly lit. However, all this is more like an illusion, because since the advent of the world of universal job transfer, Japan, or Sakura country, has long ceased to exist. This country was originally built on the island, 537, with the complete integration of the game and reality. The strong fluctuations caused by the space cracks have long since destroyed all the cities. Today's Sakura country is just a data module in a world of thousands of copies. Although, in this world, even professionals are composed of data. However, one is composed of the will of the high-latitude world, and the other is created by the first-generation priests of Sakura Kingdom. There is still a qualitative difference between the two. In other words, if the copy of Yamata no Orochi is destroyed, the Sakura Kingdom will also collapse in an instant, with no possibility of repair. Unless, the former god of Sakura Kingdom, the first-generation god of Zheng Jin, can be reincarnated. Akihabara. The top floor of the landmark building, the rooftop location at the top of the tower. 3 pale golden halos of light flashed past. Immediately, 3 great shop professionals wearing windbreakers appeared one after another. The young man standing at the front was extremely handsome, his deep eyes staring intently at the core of Kyoto. Yi Zan's eyes trembled slightly. Even he was a little shocked. As he looked forward, in the prosperous Akihabara district of Kyoto, an extremely tall altar rose from the ground. And in the center of the altar, there is a dark sculpture. That's a anomaly snake with 8 huge heads. The height reached an astonishing 700 meters. This scene is quite anomaly, even a little scary. After all, in peacetime, there is no such thing in Kyoto. And this black sculpture is not a statue of a god, but a real god-level boss. It's really evil. Zhang Taian couldn't help but frown, looking at Yamata no Orochi with a slightly uneasy expression. Legend has it that Sakura's first generation of priests, in order to completely digitize the country and integrate it with the copy, did not hesitate to sacrifice the lives of half of the citizens and sacrificed their blood, and finally gained the protection of Yamata no Orochi. Zhang Taian swallowed and murmured thoughtfully, "Not only that, I buy anomaly every year." Having said this, Zhang Taian was silent for a moment. Then he continued, "This anomaly, dirty thing, has to swallow countless living lives before it is willing to continue to protect this crumbling country." Listening to what Zhang Taian said, Yi Zan remained silent. Shelter. There is a price to pay. The twisted symbiotic relationship between Yamata no Orochi and Sakura made Yi Zan frown slightly. Coming. Yi Zan spoke. Zhang Taian and Su Mei were stunned. In an instant, Yi Zan and the others were covered in a scarlet light. That's it. Zhang Taian opened his mouth, his throat was burning and he couldn't speak. In his field of vision, the Yamata no Orochi on the altar in the center of Akihabara moved. Come alive. The dark fragments were shaken off by the sun and the moon. The original appearance appears. The 8 huge heads look like evil dragons, but also sinister and evil like snakes. The scarlet beam of light that landed on Zhang Taian and the others is the gaze of the Yamata no Orochi. Eyes like monarch, be careful. Zhang Taian's throat trembled and he reminded Yi Zan loudly. Inuyama, he is right, the Yamata no Orochi boss needs to be sacrificed. But, when faced with external invaders, they will launch a fierce offensive as soon as possible. However, Yi Zan remained motionless and didn't care at all what Zhang Taian said. Name. Yamata no Orochi, the ultimate boss of Japanese dungeon. Strength. 1-star God Godhead. Space level. LV.10000. HP. 120 billion strength. 5 million physique. 5.1 million. Spirit. 5.3 million agility. 4.7 million skills. Orochi Forbidden Land. 1-star, Soul Control. 1-star, Orochi Priest. 1-star, Space Decay. 1-star. Expertise. Lin Ming, Shire. Equipment. Yizan slightly squinted his eyes. At this time, he was looking at the detailed attribute column of the 10,000 level boss, Yamata no Orochi. The results of the inspection were naturally similar to what Yizan expected. The so-called 10,000 level, godly boss, the 4-dimensional attributes are not much different from his strength. In fact, Yizan is stronger than the patron saint of Japanese cherry blossoms. No way. The ability to plunder boss templates is indeed crazy. Although Yi Xuanxian is still only at level 1000, his 4-dimensional attributes are comparable to those of level 10,000 boss. Perhaps, the SSS level strength of the demon god's blessing specialty is not what the world refers to as S-level. But a higher dimensional definition. After crossing the demigod level, some changes have taken place. Yizan looked at the attribute column of Yamata no Orochi and thought to himself. There has indeed been a change. The original boss entry of Bloodline has been upgraded to Strength. The numerical value that defines Bloodline has been changed to 1-star God. The strength of skills, forbidden spells and other items has also changed from 1 star. The godhead is time. What made Yizan most curious was the godhead of Yamata no Orochi. This kind of thing is more similar to a kind of rule power, or divine ability in Eastern mythical? Haha. Can this kind of thing be called a god? Yizan raised his brows, didn't think about it anymore, smiled lightly, and said to himself, it's just a big snake. There was a bang. Yizan took 1 step forward. Jumped from the rooftop of the Akihabara building. However, he did not fall downwards like a kite with a broken string. On the contrary, his body trembled, and as his muscles tore apart, a brand new body broke out of his shell. 12 wings eternal Balrog. Huge body, majestic and noble, muscles as cold as marble, 2.8 textures all over. Yizan's golden eyes burned crazily, and the bone wings behind him trembled slightly, leading him to fly towards the ugly and deformed snake in the city center. At the same time, in Yizan's hand, the eternal spear was pointed directly at one of the heads of the Yamata no Orochi. Swing downward hard. At the same time, the entire Sakura Kyoto, citizens and professionals in the city were suddenly startled and looked up at the central altar. The Yamata no Orochi boss has not moved for a long time. Resurrected. Kyoto TV directly projected images of the city center. All holographic images in the city stopped playing advertisements and posters, and enlarged the ultra-clear images. Yamata no Orochi boss. In the sky. A Balrog whose body was as muscular as marble. Holding a gorgeous spear in his hand, beheaded there. God. Hiss. What is that? Boss Yamata no Orochi is resurrected. Look, is that a demon? Is it the Balrog NPC from the Abyss world? National war? NPC war? The Japanese copy was invaded? Run quickly. The war between the 10,000 level boss and the demon NPC is not something that humble professionals like us can bear. Even the aftermath of the battle can tear the entire Akihabara apart. Where is the Yin-Yang Shikigami? Where is he? Damn Inuyama Baga Ya Road. When Kyoto TV's projection screen appeared on the big screen, the entire Akihabara, and even the entire Kyoto, were shocked for the first time. Yamata no Orochi boss has a very high status in the hearts of Japanese citizens. Not only does he have a rank of 10,000, but he also has the power of a god. This anomaly snake is, in a sense, the patron saint of Japan, a kind of spiritual totem. The Yamata no Orochi was resurrected, the Enma NPC invaded Japan. This kind of explosive news directly frightened everyone in Kyoto. Akihabara. Sweeping under the terrifying elemental light, all power systems collapsed in an instant, and the originally brightly lit city suddenly fell into endless darkness. Then, it flickered again and the lights reappeared. Only, that was not a light, but the elemental light that filled the bodies of Yamata no Orochi and Yi-zan. It was extremely dazzling in the endless darkness. It even lit up the entire Kyoto. The 700-meter-tall Yamata no Orochi boss, with its 8 anomaly and twisted snake heads 25, was raised high and struck Yi-zan like a whip. And Yi-zan, holding an eternal spear in his hand, killed one of the snake heads. Clang! There was a deafening sound of metal collision, and the spear in Yi-zan's hand stabbed the Yamata no Orochi boss. Only, the next moment, Yi-zan's body disappeared out of thin air and appeared in another direction of Akihabara. Is this the Godhead? In midair, the 12 wings behind Yi-zan trembled wildly for a few times, trying to stabilize his body. At this time, he took a deep breath, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Just now, Yi-zan hit the Yamata no Orochi, there is no doubt about it. However, the imaginary explosion scene did not appear. The deformed snake head of Shaochi Orochi boss was not cut off. On the contrary, Yi-zan was moved with a bang. Above Akihabara, in the endless dark starry sky, there was an explosive roar, like a mushroom cloud. The air exploded. Even the dark sky above the head set off tiny ripples. Sure enough. More like the power of rules. Yi-zan nodded and murmured thoughtfully. The explosion like a mushroom cloud is not a skill released by Yamata no Orochi. It was the hit effect that Yi-zan had just achieved. Unfortunately, the location of the explosion was not on Yamata no Orochi, but in midair. Perhaps this is the regular power of Yamata no Orochi, the Godhead. The power to control space? Even if it hits, can you change the position to prevent the attack from taking effect? It's interesting. Yi-zan took a deep breath again, half-squinted his eyes, and looked at the Yamata no Orochi boss in front of him again. Fear? Non-existent. Yi-zan had never had any fear of this bug. A black snake with 8 heads. On the contrary, he felt a little excited that he could unleash his strongest power. Even though Yi-zan is only at level 1000, his 4-dimensional attributes can suppress Yamata no Orochi. This is like a fighting ring. One party has learned various fighting techniques and has become proficient in practicing day after day, while the other party's physical fitness but it's much stronger. Yi-zan understands the principle of using great force to produce miracles. Since there is no Godhead, it does not count as a true, divine position. Then, rely on the powerful spirit, agility, and strength to forcibly shake this so-called 10,000 level god. Boom! There was another explosive roar, and Yi-zan and Yamata no Orochi fought again. Immediately, in midair, another ball of air bombs appeared. Come again. Boom! The attack still fails. However, with the sound of explosions, finally, Yamata no Orochi was left with a burnt black wound on his body. The attack hits. The wound was bloody and bloody. However, compared to a huge creature hundreds of meters tall, this level of damage is nothing. Abyss Cage. The ancient palace of heroes. The abyss is coming. Demon god, the other side of the past. After countless battles, Yi-zan finally unleashed the strongest trump card of a series of demon priesthoods. Under countless bright and dazzling brilliance, an extremely huge cage and 10 ancient palaces filled with the undead and the aura of death all fell. 013503025 Filu 210,342,400. Suppressing the Yamata no Orochi boss. At this time, the citizens of Kyoto had truly recovered their sight, and could clearly see the figures of Yi-zan and Yamata no Orochi. Because, with millions of points of agility, the battle between Yi-zan and the big snake has reached a level that cannot be caught by the naked eyes of professionals. In their eyes, they can only see the flickering brilliance and exploding magic elements. When the Abyss Cage and the Ancient Palace of Heroes were born, the screen finally returned to its normal frame rate. Roar! The restrained Yamata no Orochi boss violently shook all the snakeheads, and the neck under each head was as flexible as a long whip, beating the ancient palace where he was imprisoned crazily. However, at this time, the big snake was exhausted. Gods also have a health bar and a mana value setting. After Yi-zan plundered all the 4-dimensional attributes of the yin-yang Shikigami, the country of mana has already far surpassed Yamata no Orochi. With a stabbing sound, Yi-zan jumped up suddenly, slashed down with the eternal spear in his hand, and the sharp spearhead finally tore open a snakehead. Flesh and blood exploded, and a snakehead hit the city directly. Then, there was the third one. The severed snakehead exploded, forming a data module, and unclear pale red cherry blossoms bloomed. The seventh one. Yi Zan gritted his teeth, and the spear in his hand gained momentum again, bursting out with even more powerful power. The snakehead fell again. At this moment, the Yamata no Orochi boss, the so-called 10,000 level god, only has the last head left, the snakehead in the center. Stop! Yi Zan dropped the spear in his hand, and the 12 wings took him to the top of Akihabara. At this time, he was as dazzling as the sun, the whole body was crazily filled with the luster of gold elements. His demonic claws stretched forward slightly, with a forbidden curse poised. However, at this moment, a stream of light flew from the direction of the skyline, and a cold-toned voice also sounded. That's it. If you continue, it won't be good for you or me. A young man wearing a black robe and a martial warrior costume appeared, holding a tachi diagonally in his hand. He was just lying in the air, and the sun's rays burst out from his body. Under his feet, he stepped on a piece of paper, flying birds. Behind the young man, another woman, who looked similar to the young man also appeared. She also had a bird on her feet and a paper fan in her hand. Amaterasu. See you on a moonlit night, twin. They are the strongest professionals in the Japanese Empire today. At the same time, he is also the highest authority in charge of the entire country. Of course, there are also these two characters in the Japanese mythical, and they are naturally the reincarnations of the first generation of Japanese priests. Just like the reincarnation of the Western god, Jehovah, today's Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi have attracted much attention around the world. I'm not good to you. Yi Zan just glanced at Amaterasu and his younger brother Tsukuyomi, who looked like a woman behind him, or Tsukiyomi, and couldn't help but sneered lightly. Amaterasu and Tsukiyama are now at the 10,000 level rank. Like the old priests of Great Sha, they are considered to be the most apex level existences. If you add the dying Yamata no Orochi boss, at this moment, Yi Zan was 1 to 3. Perhaps it is for this reason that Amaterasu feels confident. But if it's just not good for you. Yi Zan looked indifferent and raised his hand slightly. The next moment, behind him, in the sky above Akihabara, extremely terrifying creatures appeared one after another. What is Kyoto? The flame demon wings behind Yi Zan waved slightly forward, and the 12 wings wrapped him up, rising towards a higher position, enough for him to look down at Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi in front of him. Then, Yi Zan's eyes were like flames, suddenly brighter, and those golden pupils covered with lines seemed to light up the entire night sky. His voice rose a lot. A loud shout. Who do you think your Japanese god is? Two sonorous and powerful shouts, like the scolding of gods, shook the sky above Akihabara and even Kyoto. Except for Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi and some pseudo-clergy. Most Japanese citizens and professionals were shaken all over, their souls seemed to have been crushed, and their hearts could not stop trembling. Follow everyone's gaze and look up. It can be seen that behind Yi Zan, countless terrifying creatures appear in the sky above Akihabara. No, rather than a living thing, it's more like a god from high latitudes, has arrived. That's right. These are Yi Zan's followers. The phoenix, the three-headed hell dog, the unicorn of light, the infernal dragon, the sacred elf deer. Almost all are existences above the SS level. For the lowest level professionals in this world, these apex-level bloodline bosses, or believers, are already at the ceiling level. More than 300 boss followers came out of thin air and were born in Akihabara, Kyoto, occupying the entire city in an instant. The visual shock brought by the vast and huge creatures is so strong that it has no boundaries. At a glance, it is like the scene in the legend of the Great Shalong Kingdom. Hundreds of ghosts at night. What happened? No, it's too scary. Who is he? A professional? A demon NPC? Is this the destruction of civilization? Is our Japanese empire going to perish? No, Amaterasu the great goddess was alarmed. That is definitely not the fire demon priesthood of the second world. What he is talking about is Great Shalong Mandarin. How is that possible? As Yi Zan summoned the infernal dragon and other demon pets, for a moment, all the citizens in Kyoto raised their heads. Their expressions were shocked and frightened, and they completely lost their last trace of reason. It's so beyond common sense. The Yamata no Orochi boss, the patron saint of Japan, had 7 snake heads cut off, and exploded into a sky full of cherry blossoms. The most powerful priest in Japan today, the reincarnation of the first god in the past, Amaterasu, was alarmed. 300 semi-divine boss, anomaly creatures, descended on Akihabara. It all seemed too scary and terrifying. Moreover, all this happened too briefly, less than 3 minutes in total. Is the Japanese Empire going to perish in Akihabara? A demigod professional of around level 1000 stared dumbfoundedly at the screen projected by Kyoto TV. In the ultra-clear scene, every frame of the flame-winged demon transformed by Yi Zan was extremely clear, but looking at this majestic body, this semi-divine level professional felt the urge to die. Innate fear from the soul. Are you a little too blindly confident? At this time, in midair, the young man wearing a black robe with flying birds on his feet. Amaterasu frowned slightly, his eyes were as cold as snow, looking at the Balrog above his head, and said lightly, "Do you think it's just? With the demon god's position in the abyss world, can you take advantage of our Japanese? These things are not enough to see." Amaterasu's tone was very calm, and she pointed at the 300 demon pets behind Yi Zan. With a hint of anger and majesty. There is even a sense of threat. His style of doing things is completely different from Inuyama. There are not many words and not many actions. After all, he is a god who has been promoted to the 10,000 level rank. Naturally, he is somewhat different from pseudo-gods like Inuyama. What's more, Amaterasu himself is the reincarnation of Toen's first-generation god. He has his own pride. Let's go, don't step into Japan again, otherwise. Amaterasu's eyes flashed, and the bright brilliance penetrated the entire dark sky. Behind Amaterasu, a landscape painting appeared. Birds, cherry blossoms and waves overlapped in layers. The gorgeous illusion flickered for a while and then completely dissipated. Amaterasu returned to his previous indifferent expression, but looked at Yi Zan and uttered a word lightly. This time, Long Guoyu's pronunciation is quite standard. The Forbidden Land. Yi Zan's face was expressionless, and he raised his hand to release a forbidden spell, which was a domain-based forbidden spell plundered from Inuyama. For a priest of Amaterasu's level, it is not fishy. But don't forget, Yi Zan's spiritual attributes are so terrifying that even a mediocre forbidden spell can have devastating effects beyond imagination. Akihabara was shaken. Not only Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, and Yamata no Orochi boss, but even the professionals in Akihabara were covered. Dust-free forbidden area. The forbidden curse itself is also very evil. Perfect for imprisoning and restraining. Boom. When the forbidden curse fell, Yi Zan did not take action. On the contrary, behind him, the 300 boss believers set out one after another, and they all pounced on Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi. Looking for death. Amaterasu raised the corners of her mouth slightly and sneered. However, the next moment, his expression froze, no longer so calm. 013503025 Filu 210,342,540. How could it be? Amaterasu's pupils flickered, extremely surprised. Originally, he thought that the demon pets summoned by Yi Zan were just cannon fodder. After all, what can SSS level do? This kind of pedigree is no different from gravel in the eyes of the clergy. As for the rank, whether it is the infernal dragon or pet beasts such as the phoenix, their levels are not high. Under normal circumstances, even Inuyama can easily harvest it. However, these are Yi Zan's followers, freaks, that he personally trained. How could they be weak? Not to mention, even the latest wave, such as the phoenix, inherited 10% of Yi Zan's 4-dimensional attributes. What grade is this? Yi Zan's current 4-dimensional attribute strength is already comparable to a 10,000 level boss. The 4-dimensional value of more than 20 million points is only 10%, which is not a small force. What's more, the infernal dragon and the sacred deer both inherited a 35% ratio, which is already beyond the strength of a 1000-level professional. It can be understood this way. Behind Yi Zan were 300 demi-priests. Even these semi-priesthoods can continue to increase their potential as Yi Zan grows. The sun extinguishes everything. At this time, Amaterasu could no longer sit still. He raised his hands without hesitation, and the sword was pulled out. His pupils twisted, showing anomaly and bright patterns. Amaterasu originally represents the sun. His godhead is naturally the sun, so he needs to use his strongest trump card. Amaterasu, who was surrounded by countless demon pets, moved slightly, and countless brilliance overflowed from the gaps in the darkness. Like an air bomb that was about to explode, strong magic waves were gathering momentum. Not only him, but Yu Yejian, who looked like a woman, also used the godhead, Yu. At this time, Yi Zan, who witnessed all this, smiled slightly. 3 priesthoods. He really didn't take it seriously. Because he was fully prepared, as Yi Zan raised his paws, he softly uttered one word: death. As if the words were spoken, in everyone's eyes, the Yamata no Orochi boss, with only one snake head left, made a sharp and ear-piercing sound, like some kind of bird before it died. Wail. Immediately, the last head, under the bombardment of all the demon pets, was completely blown to pieces, bursting into a long row of cherry blossoms, scattering in the sky of Akihabara. Extremely turbulent data modules flew towards Yi Zan, and unprecedented, Li Jiao, attribute points were crazily blessed on Yi Zan's body. Not only the explosive growth of 4-dimensional attributes, but also those belonging to the priesthood. Godhead, divine authority, the power of rules. Yi Zan raised his head slightly, enjoying the moment. When all the original power and the purest things of Yamata no Orochi were plundered, Yi Zan at this moment is not as simple as 1 + 1. At this time, he has completely surpassed the level of ordinary 10,000 level boss, and is not a 1-star god. As high as it can be. When the Yamata no Orochi boss fell, Amaterasu frowned fiercely. He could no longer control his emotions and turned to look at Yi Zan. He didn't expect that Yi Zan's target was not him and Yu Yejian at all, but Yama no Orochi. I told you, who are you Japanese gods? Where's Inuyama Ga? Let him get out. Witness, watch the cherry blossoms. Yi Zan took a deep breath and spoke lightly, but his voice was still loud and deafening. The bursting cherry blossoms after the death of Yamata no Orochi were flying all over the sky, and among the flying cherry-colored petals, Yi Zan slightly opened his arms and the wings behind you. Eyes as bright as fire. Horse riding in Japan, admiring flowers. In Kyoto, the top 3 floors of a magnificent building were built into the most luxurious central flat floor. The floor-to-ceiling windows that surround 360 degrees are covered with a layer of heavy curtains. This 3-story space has been completely opened up, with a ceiling height of more than 10 meters. The decoration is even more luxurious and simple, and even a pavilion has been built and green plants full of cherry blossom style have been arranged. The light golden arrays appeared layer by layer. Immediately, an old man wearing a gray robe with a wrinkled face emerged from it. Where did Amaterasu go? The old man was none other than Inuyama Ga, who had just been killed by Yi Zan. At this time, he had been resurrected, and his rank had dropped by several thousand levels. Just now, he went to a sacred mountain in Sakura, Japan, and wanted to request Amaterasu comes out of the mountain. However, Inuyama Ga discovered that neither Amaterasu nor Tsukuyomi seemed to be in Sakura sacred land. Damn you bastards! Inuyama he took a deep breath and tried his best to calm down his inner emotions. His old face was lined with wrinkles, but with a strong evil aura. When Amaterasu comes out of the mountain, sooner or later you bastards will. They were all driven out and killed. And I, the Japanese Empire, will definitely enslave your dragon kingdom completely. Inuyama Ga pulled out a tachi and rubbed the lines on the side of the tachi. No, such a strong spell fluctuation? It's a forbidden curse. Even though his level has dropped a lot, Inuyama Ga is still considered a semi-priest, and his perception of elements exceeds that of most professionals in the world's H dimension. Without much hesitation, Inuyama he rushed forward, bowed slightly, and held the ancient sword in his hand tightly. Then, like a hound, he cautiously opened the corner of the curtain. The thick velvet curtains trembled slightly, dust was shaken off, and the floor-to-ceiling curtains were completely opened. Hiss! What? For a moment, Inuyama's expression froze, so stiff that all the pores in his body were trembling, and a sense of panic that touched his soul completely dominated him. Wow! 720 The 160-degree panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows were fully opened, and the picture of Akihabara and even the entire Kyoto was presented in front of Inuyama Ga's eyes. At this time, Inuyama he had the urge to die. The scene in front of him broke his cognition and made him almost kneel down, his kneecaps rattling. Countless huge and ferocious monsters occupied the entire city. The city buildings that were originally arranged in an orderly manner have completely collapsed. At a glance, they are all in ruins. This is not the most shocking scene. What made Inuyama collapse and panic the most was the ancient black sculpture in the center of Akihabara, which he had believed in as a god and spiritual totem since he was a child. Yamata no Orochi boss. Lord Yamata has fallen. The snake heads were cut off one by one, leaving only the flat sections like mirrors. Black and red blood all over the ground. The sky is filled with cherry blossoms. Died? The Japanese god is dead? Is it him? Inuyama's eyelids jumped wildly, and his sight finally moved to midair, where a familiar body appeared. It is the Balrog with 12 jet black wings. The demon priest who ravaged him to pieces not long ago. Anomaly's great shot professional. Not only Yi-zan. Inuyama congratulated Amaterasu, who had just asked to come out of the mountain, and saw him on a moonlit night, and he was actually there. This is what happened. Inuyama's heart trembled, he gasped for air, and let out a miserable cry that was almost a whine. At this time, what Yi-zan once said echoed in his mind inexplicably. Viewing cherry blossoms. Come out. At the same time, in the dark starry sky, Yi-zan narrowed his eyes slightly and grabbed forward with his huge demonic right hand. The space was distorted, causing ripples and shaking uncontrollably. It is the power of rules plundered from Yamata no Orochi, the CFBC, space, godhead. This kind of thing is also Yi-zan's first time to use it. Under the power of rules of space, a short and thin body was suddenly moved, arriving in front of Yi-zan. Mid-air, the void was torn apart, and a huge demonic claw grabbed Inuyama tightly. That was not Yi-zan's hand, it's a kind of phantom power. Innocent. Yi-zan looked into Inuyama's eyes, unleashing the majesty of the priesthood to the extreme, looking down at him from the perspective of a monarch. After a long, long silence, Yi-zan only said 2 short words. This is what Inuyama said to Yi-zan in Zhanghai City. Now, gave it back to him. F.M. The fear of death made Inuyama's muscles all over his body numb, and Tinling Guy felt a tingling sensation like an electric shock. He was already despairing. Yi-zan smiled and said nothing. The cold smile made Inuyama feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. The torture in the silence was too painful. Dha. A snap of fingers. Yi-zan pinched his fingers. The devil's claws in the void also completely crushed Inuyama. This time, it's not just death. Instead, he used a power from the Abyss World Demon Priest. The power of death. It is not considered a god, nor does it reach the strength of the rules, but for a professional of Inuyama's level, it is enough to crush him into pieces. In just a moment, Inuyama's body completely exploded into dust, and large pieces of data modules disappeared one after another like ocean waves. Amaterasu remained silent. Uiign behind him had panic written all over his face. The two of them are considered to be at the 10,000 level, but they are only at the 10,000 level. In a sense, it is not even as good as Yamata no Orochi boss. It is true that the first generation of gods reincarnated, but it also requires time to grow. Now, in terms of strength, they can only be regarded as the lowest level of gods. Boom! Yi-zan set off again. This time when he came to Japan Sakura, his purpose was not just a 10,000 level boss. According to Shu Yue, in addition to the natural disaster of the undead, there will be a catastrophe 3 years later. The fourth natural disaster. The intensity of natural disasters is a kind of devastating cleansing. The entire world of universal job transfer completely collapsed in an instant. Neither civilization nor the world existed anymore. According to Yi-zan's speculation, this intensity may have exceeded ordinary people's level? After all, only at level 10,000 can one be considered a 1-star god, and above that. 2-star, 3-star god? Yi-zan is not sure how strong the disaster in the life script is. At least for now, he should be unable to resist it. So, in addition to Yamata no Orochi, Yi-zan does not intend to keep any other priests in Japan. To cut weeds, we must remove the roots. As for kindness? That's an excuse for losers. A burst of light flashed past, and Yi Zan flew towards Amaterasu and Yu Yejian at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. Under the effect of the space godhead, he disappeared anomaly. The figure appeared again, already behind Amaterasu. Das. Yamata no Orochi's 1-star skill exploded. A god-level 1-star skill, the divine power to control space. Dia. Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi stiffened. The bloodbard trembled twice. The health value has dropped to less than half. Impossible. This is the divine power of Lord Yaki? Who are you? Amaterasu no longer had the hypocrite's attitude before, and was no longer so calm. Instead, he roared at the top of his lungs. His eyes almost bulged out. What is more shocking is not the power of the godhead. After all, the godhead of space is not too rare for a 10,000 level person. What makes Amaterasu even more horrified and puzzled is, according to his understanding, Yi Zan is only a 9th level professional. To put it mildly, he is only a 10,000 level professional. How could it be so powerful at this level, comparable to level 10,000? No, crush 10,000 levels. It is easiest to be frightened and fearful of things beyond cognition. Amaterasu has lost his mind. However, the body he saw with Yu Yi was already controlled by Yi Zan's regular godhead, and there was no way to escape. The sun of Amaterasu and the moon of the moonlight night, these two divine personalities are not weaker than the space. However, the two of them have just been promoted to level 10,000 and become true priests, and now they are unable to use this power of rules perfectly. Yi Zan is different. He took it directly from Yamata no Orochi boss, and his godhead can perfectly control the skills and forbidden spells all over the sky, without any chanting or release, were just overwhelming, flying down towards Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi like a downpour, like meteors and meteorites. It's also like waterfalls and falling stars. It's so shocking. Stab. At the moment when Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi were about to be given death, the entire Japanese copy trembled violently, and a gap was torn open in the space. In the huge gap, a powerful magical light enveloped the Amaterasu brothers. At the same time, it also gently blocked the forbidden spells and skills thrown down by Yi Zan from the outside world. Higher priesthood. Yi Zan frowned. In his sight, at the other end of the space crack, there were countless more powerful priests. It should be the priesthood of the older generation in the Japanese dungeon, or the god of the old ones? Want to run? Yi Zan casually grabbed the ancient sword that Inuyama he had just left. It was not a powerful piece of equipment, and its grade was only an epic level below the priesthood. However, Yi Zan just waved. At the last moment before the space barrier was closed, Amaterasu's right hand was cut off abruptly. In Amaterasu's right hand, he was holding a sword tightly. Can it be enhanced into legendary equipment? Yi Zan picked up the sword casually, and after just one glance, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. This is not an ordinary weapon, but a sword that can be enhanced to a legendary level. You only need to use the Star Core from boss or priests above level 10,000 to complete the enhancement. Yi Zan glanced at him. A huge Star Core has fallen next to the dead Yamata no Orochi boss. This kind of item will only be dropped by beings above level 10,000, and Yamata no Orochi's Star Core can just allow Yi Zan to obtain a truly legendary weapon. Tachi. Yi Zan frowned. He has no intention of using this Japanese weapon. However, things with legendary strength are of high value even if they are used for exchange. Let's see if there are any good things left. Yi Zan flew towards the body of Yamata no Orochi boss. How could a godlike existence leave no good things behind? Legendary level weapons may be just the appetizer. What's more, at this time, no one in Japan Sakura, or in this copy, can threaten Yi Zan in the slightest. The older generation of priests from Japan, those old gods, and the old priests from Great Sha Long Kingdom should be in the myriad races battlefield now, with no way to come back. Even if I can come back, so what? Yi Zan has already shown his value and potential. If the old gods behind Japan want to touch him, is it possible that the older generation of priests behind Great Sha Long Kingdom will not take action? There must be someone stronger than Yi Zan, however. All forces are restrained. The older generation of priests has a check on the older generation of priests. The first gods versus the first gods. From the current point of view, at least in the world of national job transfer, Japan Yizan is not a threat at all, he is invincible. Yama-kun is dead. Even Amaterasu is dead. Compared to Yizan's calmness, in Akihabara district, a semi-divine level knight professional wearing dark black armor had a complete emotional breakdown. He could no longer restrain the suffocating fear and screamed miserably. Said, "Japan is going to collapse again." The Japanese Sakura itself has collapsed once since everyone changed their jobs and the world merged. The new country is integrated with the dungeon, relying on the Yamata no Orochi boss to survive. A deformed and twisted symbiotic relationship formed. At this moment, the Yamata no Orochi fell, and their first-generation gods, Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, were also defeated and were rescued by the gods of the past. No one could save Japan left behind. It is no exaggeration to say that the group is leaderless. In a country without gods, destruction is a foregone conclusion. Moreover, Japan is a dungeon. When the final boss dies, this dungeon world is destined to disappear. The fear of death dominated this half-divine level knight. Not only him, but at the same time, the entire Kyoto. The entire Japan fell into an unprecedented panic. How is that possible? That's Amaterasu. It's not the Balrog NPC. It's not Gao Wei's life. Is that a professional from the Great Sha-Long Kingdom? The Dragon Kingdom only has the White God, the Dharma God, and the higher-level Poseidon. It is impossible to interfere in the pattern of the real world. Who is this new god? Demon position. Reincarnation in the abyss world? To anomaly? Japan is going to perish. Damn it. Where are those old gods? Where are the enshrined gods? Why don't they come to the rescue? Just took away Amaterasu. Tsukuyomi. What about us? Japan is already in chaos. The only three gods, the Yamata no Orochi boss, Amaterasu, and Tsukuyomi, who were regarded as spiritual totems and beliefs, are gone. In the real world, Japan has become a unclaimed land. Not only the citizens of Japan, but also the professionals at the semi-divine level are also frightened to the point where the Extreme Academy is completely in despair. The powerful professional immediately used the teleportation scroll or some tickets for high-level dungeons to escape Japan. The weak professionals, as well as ordinary people, are in agony, desperately waiting to die. This country is not without the old gods, nor is it without the older generation of priests. However, they did not come to the rescue. The specific reasons are not clear to low-level professionals, but demigods like Inuyama Ga know the reasons very well. The myriad races battlefield has restrained the old gods, and no one can escape the authority of that higher dimensional power. Akihabara. Zhang Taiyan coughed twice, smiled bitterly, looked back at Tsume, who was already stunned, and said something to say. The three Japanese gods are dead. The 10,000 level divine power has also been shattered. The power of the monarch is more terrifying than we imagined. Tsume cried and laughed. Yizan's various achievements had already shocked Zhang Taiyan and the two of them, but they couldn't believe that Yizan was already so powerful. Even now, Yizan told them that even the old gods of the Great Sha-Long Kingdom could not stop him. Zhang Taiyan and the other two would nod without hesitation, firmly believing Yizan's statement. As for those previous speculations, is Yizan the reincarnation of the first-generation god? Zhang Taiyan shook his head and couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Perhaps, it is beyond my knowledge, old man. Even the reincarnation of the first-generation god of Great Sha may not be able to describe the power of your eyes. Ding, congratulations, you successfully obtained the legendary weapon, Yakikiri. As Yizan placed the star core dropped by the Yamata no Orochi boss, something similar to a walnut kernel, on the handle of the Amaterasu sword, a cold reminder sounded in Yizan's mind, stand up. Bakikiri? Yizan raised his eyebrows, very funny name. Cut. In Japanese, it means knife. Yizan clicked on this legendary equipment and briefly checked the detailed attribute column. Name. Yagakiri, exclusive to the final boss, grade, legendary. Attributes. Plus 750,000 points of strength, plus 800,000 points of agility. Exclusive weapon skills. Baki Forbidden Land, Chidori Kiri, Mirrorless Thunder, Ignore Forbidden Curse. Ignore the Forbidden Curse? The detailed attributes of Yagakiri are very good. Both attribute entries have increased the four-dimensional value by hundreds of thousands of points. However, what surprised Yi Zan was that one of the exclusive weapon skills was, ignore the forbidden curse. Of course, it does not mean that all forbidden spells are ignored, but there is a certain probability of ignoring forbidden spells at the legendary level and below. As for the divine level forbidden spells, that kind of thing is exclusive to the priesthood. How can a legendary weapon ignore that kind of thing? Not bad. Yi Zan nodded. Not bad indeed. However, Yi Zan still doesn't know how to use this weapon. Is there nothing else? Yi Zan checked all the items dropped by Yamata no Orochi, but couldn't help but frowned, a little disappointed. Except for the Hachijiri, which is good, the others are all relatively ordinary, with no big surprises. The strongest one is only at the epic level. As for the materials of Yamata no Orochi boss, if you have an apex level pharmacist or blacksmith, you can also use them. Maybe we can create one or two good things, infinitely close to or equivalent to the legendary level. However, pharmacists and blacksmiths who can create legendary items are simply not found in the real world. Only in the second world can we have the chance to meet. For example, the elven pharmacist NPC. That's that. After putting away the body left by the Yamata no Orochi boss, Yi Zan made an unexpected discovery. Under the big snake, there is even an item hidden. Name: Fallen Angel Cross Sword of Authority Grade. Divine Weapon Incomplete. Attributes: 0 exclusive weapon skills. Theocracy. Note: this weapon can be patched using a God's Star Core or a higher level weapon. Divine Weapon. Yi Zan's eyes suddenly lit up and he couldn't help but gasped. This is the first time he has seen Divine Weapon. In the detailed attribute column, there is even an entry for Divine Power. This entry is not found in other weapons. Star Core. Weapons can be repaired. Yi Zan half squinted his eyes. He couldn't help but look at the Yukikiri in his hand. If this legendary equipment is used to feed the Fallen Angel Cross Sword, I wonder if the damaged Divine Weapon can be repaired. It shouldn't be enough. Yi Zan finally gave up. Divine Weapon is something that even the older generation of Dragon Kingdom priests may not have much of. It would be too easy to repair just a legendary piece of equipment. Keep it for now. Yi Zan put away the Fallen Angel Cross Sword and Yukikiri and prepared to go to the winter dungeon to see the situation. The next step is hunting. Yi Zan stretched his arms slightly, held the Eternal Spear again, and looked at a corner of Akihabara. There is also a semi-divine level professional there. There are still 2 days before the opening of the winter dungeon. For Yi Zan, the time is enough. He can completely search and plunder Japan, a country that is as small as it can be. At the same time, catch all the semi-divine level professionals in one fell swoop and harvest them all. Under the space godhead of the Yamata no Orochi boss, Yi Zan at this time is no different from the gods of Japan. He is even more powerful and crazy than the original Yamata no Orochi. No one can escape from Yi Zan's hands. After 1 day, Yi Zan's harvest is completed. Half of the semi-divine level professionals in Japan were killed by him. The other part was rescued by the old gods of Japan. Even if these old gods couldn't return to Japan and attack Yi Zan, they could use some more powerful force to tear open the cracks in space in a short time and take away the powerful seeds. Japan cannot have only clergy, those semi-divine levels who have yet to grow into true gods. Are their last seedlings. As for other professionals, most of them died in the hands of 300 demon pets and turned into experience points and attribute points. This is not a simple death. Rather, there is no resurrection, eternal fall. After all, Yi Zan's power that belongs to the demonic priesthood carries with it the will to die. It is not considered a rule or godhead, but it can make these little ants under the priesthood. There is no possibility of rebirth. After harvesting the entire Japanese copy, Yi Zan's harvest was too great. Name: Yi Zan. Occupation: 12 Wings Eternal Balrog. Occupation: Demon God. Level: LV.1000, 9 turns. HP: 350 billion. Strength: 12.75 million. Physique: 14.2 million. Spirit: 15.4 million. Agility: 15.5 million. Yi Zan checked his detailed attributes and couldn't help being a little shocked. At the end of the day, his total 4-dimensional attributes directly increased to 50 million points. It is already several times the size of Yamata no Orochi boss. And the health value, blood bar, are incredibly long. With hundreds of billions of health points, he is enough to ignore most of the forbidden spells. Even if he is hit, he will not die instantly. The health bar is thicker than the divine boss. In addition to the harvest of four-dimensional attributes, of course there are also skills, forbidden spells, expertise and other things. A total of more than 30 epic-level forbidden spells were harvested. Hundreds of SSS level skills. Even in terms of expertise, there are only 7 or 8 people who have reached the full level of SSS. Where's the equipment? It's even more intense. 36 pieces of epic-level equipment were harvested in one breath, and basically all the last information about Japan was collected. With so many epic weapons, even if Great Shah's Bai Shen were to take them out, he would be stunned for a moment. Certainly, there are even more templates. Countless career templates can all be used by Yi Zan. If he wants to, he can even touch the yin and yang martial god of Yamata no Orochi boss and Inuyama Ga. In an anomaly way. That's not necessary. Yi Zan raised his brows and said to himself. The Yamata no Orochi is too evil and unlucky. Yin-yang gods, in Yi Zan's opinion, this kind of god can be regarded as a dirty thing. There is no need to use their templates. As for throwing it away, that's not the case. For example, the space rule power of Yamata no Orochi boss, some of the god's 1-star skills, and god's 1-star expertise can also be used. Actually, this time in Japan, Yi Zan's biggest gain should be the Hachikiri and the Fallen Angel cross sword. One is that its strength has reached the legendary level, and the other is that it can be promoted to the divine weapon level. For real gods, epic level things are of little use. Yi Zan did not intend to use those items himself, but planned to leave them to believers, or his 300 demon pets. Yi Zan opened the experience point inventory and threw more than 3 billion experience points to the infernal dragon and the others. With tens of millions of points of four-dimensional attributes, Yi Zan does not need to improve his rank. At least it's not necessary now. However, demon pets such as the infernal dragon and the phoenix are different. As long as they are given a higher rank, they can derive stronger skills and length. With the blessing of Yi Zan's extremely terrifying attributes, he feeds back. Just imagine, these 300 demon pets are only as strong as half-divine level professionals? Perhaps. After a while, the phoenix summoned by Yi Zan will be comparable to a 10,000 level boss, and can easily kill a god like Yamata no Orochi. The Japanese copy is about to explode. After doing all this, Yi Zan raised his head slightly and glanced at the sky. According to the time, it should be daytime. However, at this moment, the sky above Yi Zan's head was still pitch black. Without the blessing of Yamata no Orochi boss, the copy itself collapsed. What's more, during the battle between Yi Zan and Amaterasu, the terrifying energy fluctuations shattered the last trace of the Japanese copy's foundation. Japan at this time is not just Akihabara or Kyoto. Basically no one can be seen. Either he was given death by Yi Zan, or be taken away by the Japanese god of the past, or he escaped to some rare and small copies and curled up. There are only some ordinary people, Japanese people who are not professionals, perhaps nestling in their homes, silently waiting for death. Or, praying that their so-called god of the old days, the first-generation god, could save them? Unfortunately, this is most likely just a fantasy. Even Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi, the reincarnations of the first gods, were killed by Yi Zan as pitifully as a drowned dog, not to mention these ordinary people. Your Majesty. Zhang Taian stood beside Yi Zan, raising his head slightly to ask for instructions from the young monarch without saying anything he shouldn't have said. Go back to Great Shah. Yi Zan said lightly. The Japanese cherry blossoms are probably in decline. Doomed. Yi Zan can completely use the space power of Yamata no Orochi's godhead to reshape this Japanese copy so that the surviving low-level professionals can survive. However, why do this? Even Su Mei may not be able to bear it. In the end, it will definitely not be done, cutting off the roots. A monarch does not need mercy. Roar. When Yi Zan was about to step into the magic circle and leave Japan, the infernal dragon suddenly rushed towards him, its huge head shaking slightly towards a snow mountain in the southernmost part of Japan. Is there anything there? Yi Zan was a little surprised and asked tentatively. With a roar, the infernal demonic dragon raised its head and let out a 4.0 roar, then crawled on the ground, shaking its head and motioning for Yi Zan to sit behind him. A hint of surprise appeared on Yi Zan's face. Got something good missing? Theoretically, it's impossible. Items belonging to the Japanese copy world should be able to be inspected by Yi Zan. Here, he now has godlike control. Not a Japanese item? There is only one possibility. Soon, the purgatory demonic dragon carried Yi Zan and Zhang Taiyan to the snow mountain. There was a glacier at the foot of the mountain. Under the glacier, Yi Zan's pupils suddenly shrank. Under the ice, there is a red-haired girl sealed. 3 stars. Gods? Yi Zan took a deep breath of cold air and felt his heart trembling. In the Japanese world, there is actually a 3-star god hidden? Name: Cursed Girl Arya. Evil demon race, occupation: demon priest. Strength: 3-star god godhead. Darkness: 2 stars, sacrifice: 3 stars. Level: LV.1400 exclusive weapon. High Priest Golden Compass, legendary +2, damaged. Note: the cursed girl is wrapped in roses. Only the power of the devil in the abyss world can open the ice. Yi Zan was indeed shocked. I didn't expect that Japan's underground world would hide such a thing. The red-haired girl's name is Aliyah. Judging from the template, the priesthood she holds is an exclusive profession in the abyss world, demon priest. This kind of profession is even rarer than Yi Zan's demon priesthood. Even the demon priesthood that Yi Zan has now obtained is not a real priesthood, in a sense. It only has the potential to be promoted to the demon priesthood, and has just touched the rules of God, strength. True godhead has not yet been achieved. The level is only 1400. Yi Zan frowned. It doesn't matter, after all. Aliyah is a 3-star god. According to Yi Zan's calculations, the Yamata 25 snake boss is a 1-star god, and its level happens to be level 10,000. Isn't this a coincidence? Perhaps, it can be understood this way: the strength of the priesthood. It means a kind of potential, just like the bloodline of low-level boss. If you are a 3-star god, maybe you can be promoted to level 30,000? Level 30,000? Yi Zan swallowed and couldn't help but sigh. Even though his current 4-dimensional attributes can already crush Yamata no Orochi, existences above the god level, Yi Zan doesn't know much about them. Is it entirely possible that after reaching level 10,000, you can gain thousands of attributes per level, or even more? If you look at it this way, Yi Zan is not that much. Of course, comparing tens of thousands of level gods with 1,000 level 9 level professionals is indeed a bit exaggerated. As time goes by, with the blessing of the ability to plunder boss templates, Yi Zan's strength can only increase crazily, and there is no bottleneck. Darkness and sacrifice. Yi Zan nodded. Aliyah has 2 godheads. What is different from Yamata no Orochi boss is that these 2 godheads have levels. 2 stars and 3 stars. Although Yi Zan is not so clear about the situation of the priesthood. However, judging from the comments in the template, it should be pretty much the same. The strength of this demon priest's godhead can completely destroy the space godhead of Yamata no Orochi. It's not that the space godhead is too weak, it means different intensities and higher levels. Legendary level +2 compass? Yi Zan smiled slightly, a little surprised. Looking down through the layers of ice, this delicate red-haired girl was indeed holding a golden compass in her hands. Although, the compass looks like an ordinary handicraft. However, how can a legendary weapon be weak? What's more, this is a legendary +2 apex level weapon. Yi Zan took a deep breath and felt a faint sense of joy. What if this demon priest has been controlled by Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi? Perhaps Yi Zan's day would not be so smooth either. Facing a 3-star god and a legendary weapon that is already considered the ceiling level in this world of universal job transfer. Even if Yi Zan uses all his methods, it is difficult to kill him. Become a believer. Or behead? Yi Zan was a little silent. He was thinking about his final decision. Aliyah is a demon priest. A profession that is obviously more powerful than Yi Xuanshen's current 12-winged flame demon. If he were to be killed directly, Yi Zan could definitely obtain a quite outstanding career template. No priesthood template, he can become a true god. Coupled with the terrifying 4-dimensional attribute points, according to Yi Zan's guess, even the older generation of priests, as long as they are not higher than the strength of a 3-star god? He should be able to handle it too. However, judging from Aaliyah's template comments, it seems that he can also try to open the ice seal and rescue the sealed demon priest. Become a believer. NPC believer? Yi Zhan raised his eyebrows, which was more than expected. Yi Zhan had indeed planned to conquer NPC believers a long time ago. However, that was also when I went to places like the Abyss World, the Elf World, or the Winter Dungeon. And now, it has arrived earlier than expected. I just don't know, with my position as the demon god. Can I tame the demon god priest? Yi Zhan thought to himself. Somewhat uneasy, if Aaliyah doesn't surrender, then, kill her. Kill the god. A girl. At the same time, Su Mei, who was next to Yi Zhan, opened her delicate eyes wide, her teeth slightly biting the corner of her mouth, a little stunned. Then, Su Mei took hold of the weapon in her hand, became a little wary, and even walked forward, blocking Yi Zhan behind her. As a squire, the monarch's safety is higher than his own. Although Su Mei was a bit silly, revealing a kind of clear stupidity that only female college students can possess, when faced with this kind of thing, her instinctive reaction made Yi Zhan nod. Back off. Yi Zhan waved his hand without explaining too much. Su Mei and Zhang Taiyan have limited levels. Since he has not obtained the divine status, he naturally cannot explore the detailed attributes of the demon priest and this god-level existence. Su Mei and the other two were stunned for a moment, and then retreated according to Yi Zhan's order. Immediately, Yi Zhan raised the demon power in his hand slightly into the air. Powerful demonic power swept in, completely covering the entire glacier. The terrifying magical elements and the power that represents death and darkness are turbulent layer by layer, as if they are about to overturn the glacier. Soon, everything is calm. The glacier broke, and under the ice that had been frozen for who knows how many years, a girl with long rose-red hair finally appeared in front of Yi Zhan and Zhang Taiyan. Without the cover of the glacier, Aaliyah's true appearance was exposed in front of Yi Zhan, and even he couldn't help but feel slightly moved. Very beautiful. She has an exquisite appearance, with a mixed-race look like a model, and her figure is even more flawless, with graceful and voluptuous curves, and her fair and tight thighs are shining. If I have to say it, Aaliyah should be considered Yi Zhan had seen the most beautiful woman. No wonder. It is said that the succubus among demons is a creature in the world. Yi Zhan smiled secretly in his heart. With a snap, Aaliyah opened her eyes slightly, hiss. Su Mei behind her suddenly took a breath of air. Yi Zhan was also stunned. They were a pair of extremely dazzling eyes. Various patterns flashed in the bright red pupils, and the center pupil had a spot that shone like gold. It not only carries the majesty of a monarch, but also has feminine characteristics full of charm and attraction. Very beautiful, Aaliyah, Yi Zhan called lightly. What he uses is one of the official languages of the Abyss World, or Devil's Language. After completing the 9th transfer, Yi Zhan naturally learned the most basic demon language. This is an innate ability. Like the basic skills of demons, it can be obtained after changing jobs. Ear, or death. Yi Zhan spoke, and the ancient demonic language slowly came out of his mouth. As soon as Yi Zhan's voice fell, Aaliyah's body visibly stiffened for a moment. Immediately, her pupils suddenly burst out with even more brilliant brilliance. Okay. Aaliyah's eyes showed a confused emotion. She tilted her head slightly, looked at Yi Zhan and said. And at the same time, a cold reminder also sounded in Yi Zhan's mind. Ding! Congratulations, you have successfully converted the cursed girl Arya into a believer. You will receive a reward. Spiritual attribute points plus 300,000 points up pointing arrow. When the contract between the believer and the monarch increases, you will receive a higher reward. After hearing the prompt, Yi Zhan raised his brows slightly. A total of 300,000 points of spiritual attributes can be said to be an extremely exaggerated reward. Even though Yi Zhan's current 4-dimensional attributes have reached a very terrifying level, 300,000 mental points are extremely precious even for a 10,000 level boss. In addition to Yi Zhan's attribute improvement after contracting with Aaliyah, this demon priest also inherited Yi Zhan's attribute quota. So tall, Yi Zhan checked the 4-dimensional attributes shared by Aaliyah and was a little stunned. They are higher than the infernal dragon. actually reaching a high 40%. In other words, Aaliyah basically has half of Yi Zhan's four-dimensional attributes. Even if Aaliyah is only over 1,000 levels at this time, if she uses the 40% attribute points shared from Yi Zhan, plus her own two godheads, darkness and sacrifice, Aaliyah, who is level 1000, will probably you can also easily kill the Yamata no Orochi boss. Hiss. Yi Zhan glanced slightly and nodded with satisfaction. Counting this demon priest follower, the harvest from this visit to the Japanese dungeon can be said to be very surprising. Are you too mentally weak? Yi Zhan once again focused his attention on Aaliyah. This demon girl gave him a strange feeling. Not only was her eyes extremely confused, but even her movements were stiff and a little awkward. How should I put it, rather than a woman with a perfect figure and appearance, more like 10 little girls with poor intelligence, or poor mental state. Is it the effect of being cursed? Yi Zhan thought to himself. Somewhat curious. Logically speaking, the existence of a 3-star god is already beyond the level of knowledge of Zhang Taiyan, Su Mei and others. No matter how strong Yi Zhan is, he will not be able to conquer this evil demon race sacrificial girl so easily. The only explanation, maybe it's because of the curse. Arya may have been cursed by some higher dimensional power, causing Aaliyah's sanity to be somewhat lacking. I got a bargain, actually. Yi Zhan's lips raised a little, feeling a little lucky for no reason. If we change to a 3-star god, let alone whether it has been upgraded to level 10,000, even if it is only over 1,000 levels, Yi Zhan may not be able to conquer it as a believer so easily. NPCs in the world of job transfer are not just data modules, they are also flesh and blood lives. A noble god and a natural-born priest of the demon priesthood. With that kind of innate arrogance and nobility, how could you be willing to surrender to other beings? Not to mention, to put it a little more bluntly, Yi Zhan's rank at this time was only level 1000. Go home. Without thinking much, Yi Zhan opened a teleportation circle and prepared to take Zhang Taiyan and the others back to the building. The Japanese dungeon is over, and the next step is the winter dungeon 2 days later. In comparison, that is the real-world level dungeon. How about asking Shen Choewi and the others about the status of the priesthood? Yi Zhan nodded. He has indeed accomplished the feat of killing gods, but in the final analysis, his understanding of the god-level ranks is still very limited. After all, Bai Shen, Shen Choewi and others are the most apex-level power class in Daewon Long Kingdom. Since they came to Zhanghai City to visit him, he could have a little chat with them before the winter dungeon was opened. At least I have a partial understanding of the priesthood and the divine authority above the god level. At the same time, after Yi Zhan left Japan, the entire world of job transfer was about to be blown up by this breaking news. Who would have thought that the Japanese copy would actually explode? The 10,000 level boss Yamata no Orochi, and even Japan's strongest priests such as Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi, the first reincarnated priests, were all defeated. In the end, it was the older generation of Japanese priests and old gods who took Amaterasu and some semi-divine level professionals away. Only, their final fate may not be that good either. How could those Japanese demigods who were lucky enough to survive be able to resist the alien gods on the battlefield of the Fang tribe? And Japan, following Yi Zhan's battle, was completely defeated. Even if some demigods survive, as time goes by, Japan will slowly die out and cease to exist, becoming a real, subjugated country. A professional in Great Sha. It is said that the 12-winged demon god who took action was not a priest of the Abyss world, but just a newly promoted new god of Great Sha. How is that possible? Except for the old-name clergy such as the water god. The so-called Dharma gods and white gods in Great Sha are just pseudo-gods of several thousand levels. I have never heard of the demon god. Character? It's not clear. It can't be the first reincarnation of the Great Shalong Kingdom, right? It should be like this. Being able to kill a 10,000 level god like Yamata no Orochi boss would be unbelievable if it wasn't the first generation. The most important thing is not these, but time. Japan was destroyed in one day. From this point of view, even Pope Peter X in the West seems to have a hard time doing it. All over the world, this big news is being discussed crazily. And Yi Zhan's identity has become the hottest topic. His strength is too strong, and his background is extremely mysterious. It can be said that in the past, no one has ever heard of the existence of the Great Sha demon god, the birth of Yi Zan was like appearing out of thin air. However, it was like this that he appeared out of thin air and created many achievements that even the first reincarnation of Western gods could not achieve. It is definitely a blockbuster. As for domestic, it completely exploded. The footage previously recorded by Kyoto TV has been leaked. Every move and frame of Yi Zan's killing of the Yamata no Orochi boss was clearly presented to everyone in the country. This is a shocking feeling that cannot be described in words. The Yamata no Orochi boss, for ordinary professionals, is a god beyond recognition, but as for Yi Zan, it is coming again and again. Cut off this anomaly's god forcefully. There were a total of 8 snake heads, and the cut sections were all flat and mirror-like. The visual shocking effect is enough to make people speechless. It's too tyrannical. The power of the devil has exceeded my knowledge. From the moment he destroyed the national team, every step he takes makes my soul tremble. What a great job! Horse riding in Japan and enjoying the cherry blossoms, it makes my blood boil. Tisk, tisk, I thought it was frivolous. But it turned out that the human demonic god destroyed Japan in just one day. I feel like my whole body is shaking. How strong is he? Didn't he say he was only a few hundred levels originally? Why is it that the current version is beyond my understanding? Those more than 300 demon pets exploded and flew all over the sky. Hiss. I have made one thing clear now. No matter what you do, you must not go against the demon god. It's too anomaly. It's so powerful that it's unreasonable. Domestic. The emotions of all professionals were aroused. From the time Inuyama Ga entered the territory of Great Shah to the end now, it didn't even last a day. But Yi Zan, with an extremely strong attitude, destroyed Japan on the spot. This feeling gave everyone in Great Shah an unreal sense of déjà vu, just like a fighting master going to the kindergarten. As a result, a child in the kindergarten went directly to the martial arts gym where the fighting master was. Defeated all the fighters who were famous overseas. Quite magical. It can be said that Yi Xuanshen's current reputation in the country has been raised to an extremely exaggerated level. Even Bai Shen and Shen Choeui, who are apparently powerful people and control the country's monarchs, can't compare to Yi Xuanxian now. Not even the slightest bit of mystery. His fame and strength have been discussed by the entire job transfer world and have become the biggest hot topic at present. At this time, in Zhanghai City, next to the landmark building in the city center, a woman with an exquisite appearance but an air of vulgarity raised her eyes slightly. She was watching the various news on the screen of her mobile phone and the millions of people in the professional forum posts and the crazy and shocking super emotional, good aspects of the short video app. She went crazy. The mind is completely broken. This woman is none other than Lu Qing. She is now uneasy and has a complex emotion that is difficult to explain. Demon. How could he be so strong? Lu Qing gasped for fresh air, her delicate body trembling slightly. Yi Yao? Lu Qing frowned. She doesn't know why, but she wants to go to Yi Zan's apartment now. It's not that she has anything to do, she just wants to see if Yi Zan is there. From when the devil destroyed the national team, to when Ga Inuyama appeared on the scene, Lu Qing felt uneasy every time. She doubted whether the demon god and Yi Zan might be from the same district. It's a bit funny to say that one is just an ordinary, even failed, high school student, while the other has killed 10,000 level boss and killed gods. How could it be the same person? But Lu Qing still has a strong sense of intuition, or a woman's sixth sense. What's more, demon god and Yi Zan do have many similarities. Anyway, I haven't seen him for a long time. Lu Qing raised her brows and tried her best to breathe in the fresh air to keep herself calm, and pretending to be elegant, she continued to look like a goddess and murmured to herself. Go and have a look, so what? Zhanghai City. World Financial Building, Conference Room. In the quiet conference room, professionals such as Bai Shen, Mu Shen, Shen Choeui, etc. are playing with their mobile phones with their heads down at the moment. And their expressions were even more shocking, especially the leader in the priest profession, Shepherd Chen Xinren, who was about to cry at this moment. Oh my god, boss Bai, look at it. Chen Xinren raised the tablet in his hand slightly, approached Bai Shen, and said with an incredulous expression. That's the Yamata no Orochi boss, a 10,000 level god with the space godhead. How did he get to Yi Zan's place? But he looked so unbearable. The 8 snake heads were chopped off. My god, he is so handsome. Bai Shen glanced at the screen on the tablet and immediately fell silent. This kind of silence is different from the coldness and majesty he had before, but with a touch of loneliness. Of course lonely. He, Han Mu, is the 9-star glory knight, the supreme white god of the entire Great Sha Dragon Kingdom. The original Han Mu had never had the slightest fear of anyone. Even when facing the older generation of priests such as Poseidon, he was always neither humble nor overbearing. Because Han Mu has his own pride, as long as he is given enough time and with his talent, he will definitely be able to reach the same status as Poseidon and other established priests in the future. Pity. Yi Zan appeared. He appeared in front of Han Mu with an extremely strong and crazy attitude. Whether it was killing Yang Tianchong and the others in the first place, or facing Inuyama Ga and saying, "Horses are riding on Japan," admiring cherry blossoms, or single-handedly destroying the island country. Not only the record, but also the undefeated will and the natural domineering spirit. Han Mu admitted that he couldn't do it. 393 not to mention the past, even now, or in the future. It will be difficult to do it. Too crazy. The Dharma god Shen Choewi on the side also took a deep breath, raised her plump lips, and said with gleaming eyes, "I finally understand now. This guy is probably beyond our understanding." No wonder Poseidon and the others were so sincere at that time, facing Yi Zan. They must treat Yi Zan with the same respect as if they were facing gods. Faced with Shen Chuyu's sigh, a large group of professionals in the conference room were all silent. In their eyes, Yi Zan's status at this moment has been elevated to an unimaginable height. You know, in addition to the veteran priests, old gods, and ancient gods in the myriad races battlefield and other places. In the entire world of job transfer, among the boss and professionals on the surface, Yamata no Orochi can definitely rank worthy of number. The overall strength of Yamata no Orochi boss is probably among the top 100 in the world. However, even such a powerful god-level boss was captured so easily by Yi Zan. In other words, now Yi Zan's strength is already at the global ceiling level. It's definitely not just as simple as being among the top 100 professionals in the world. Top 10. Or top 3. It's possible to be able to destroy the Japanese cherry blossoms so easily, and kill the Yamata no Orochi while drinking tea. I wonder, who can do it? Shen Choewi? Or Baishin Han Mu? Impossible. They are not even qualified to fight the Yamata no Orochi boss, let alone kill him. Bai Shen is only at a certain level now, and his rank is less than 10,000, let alone something like a godhead. Still have to practice. I don't understand the world of bosses. After a long silence, maybe because the atmosphere was too cold, Chen Xinren said with a smile. At this moment, another professional assassin coughed twice, looked at Han Mu and said, "Bai Shen, Yi Zan is back." Shirakami's eyes flickered for a moment. He was obviously in a daze. After a slight pause, he took a deep breath of air, looked at everyone in the conference room and said, "Let's go and visit that Great Sha demon god." After hearing Bai Shen's words, everyone smiled bitterly and looked at each other. They had already been rejected by Yi Zan once, but they just didn't know if they could visit the embryo-killing demon this time. Certainly, there were also several demi-priests present, but they didn't really want to meet Yi Zan. That was the demon god who had just destroyed Sakura. It wasn't just as simple as its name, but it was really so powerful that it could crush them. Everyone's strength. What if someone accidentally angered this guy? I'm afraid all the big shots in the room will be unable to eat and walk around in circles. In the future, Great Sha may also be leaderless. On the other side, Yi Zan also returned to Zhanghai City and went directly to the apartment. He first settled the confused Aaliyah and asked her to sit on the sofa properly. Then he opened WeChat and sent a message to Joanna. There are a lot of trophies obtained from Japan, especially some weapons with Japanese style, such as Tai sword. Yi Zan didn't intend to keep it, too unlucky. So, he prepares to sell to Joanna. After all, Joanna is the head of the Global Beastmasters Association, and has an unimaginable amount of funds and items in her hands, as long as she can consume so many Apex-level weapons. Of course, Yi Zan has no intention of selling the legendary sword, Yakiri, in his hand. On the one hand, you can wait for the subsequent feeding to the fallen angel cross sword to create a divine weapon. On the other hand, if there are suitable NPC believers, Yi Zan can also consider giving the sword to the believers for use. As for Xu Yue, the level of her guild is still too low, and it is no longer enough to assist Yi Zan. A small guild that can even be controlled by Bai Shen may be pretty good in Zhanghai City, but if it is placed internationally, it's really not good enough. Even if Yi Zan hands the epic weapon to Xu Yue, she will be at a loss and have no choice. Boom. CFCC. The doorbell rang. Yi Zan frowned. Zhang Taiyan, who was sitting aside, quickly stood up, while Su Mei, who was leaning against the door, looked at Yi Zan. Open the door. Yi Zan raised his chin and signaled to Su Mei. As soon as the apartment door opened, a large group of people appeared at the door. Just as Yi Zan guessed, it was Bai Shen and Shen Choeui. Ahem, the devil. Is he here? Su Mei and the demigods looked at each other for a long time. In the silent atmosphere, Shen Choeui finally smiled gently, and Taguchi interrupted the awkwardness. I wonder if it's convenient? Can we have a chat? Shen Choeui held 2 bags of fruit in both hands and said to Yi Zan with a bright smile on her face. Behind Shen Choeui, the other demigods were either carrying fruits or various gifts in their hands. How to say? This scene was so strange, even a little funny, that even Su Mei couldn't help but cough and almost couldn't hold back her smile. These big shots were not like this before. Not to mention Bai Shen and Dharma God, people with the level of shepherd god Chen Xinren are walking sideways in the country. Wherever they go, they are greeted by countless guilds, forces, and high-level professionals. When did you see these big guys acting like this? It's not so much a chat, it's more like New Year's Eve. Some juniors come to visit the elders' homes. Moreover, there is still a gesture like asking for thousands of people. Full of humor. Come in, the room is a bit small, find a place to sit by yourself. Yi Zan looked back at Shen Choeui, the legendary Dharma god, who had changed into a light gauze skirt. She is indeed beautiful, with a curvy figure perfect with just a hint of fat. And Shen Choeui, who was wearing a gauze skirt and gold accessories, looked really cute when she smiled. Yi Zan had no reason to reject the smiling Dharma god. What's more, he also wanted to learn something about god-level existences from Shen Choeui and others. Especially the details of the godhead. At Su Mei's greeting, all the crowds of people got in. The apartment was indeed a bit too small. Even if these semi-priests put away all the armors and weapons, the apartment would not be able to fit number 30 people. Well, Chen Xinren looked at the apartment, leaned into Fa Shen's ear and said, how about Lao Lu and I, go out first? Need not. Chen Xinren spoke very quietly, but Yi Zan possessed the space godhead, so how could he not hear it? He did not look at Bai Shen and others, but stood up slowly, and with a wave of his hand, a massive amount of elemental radiance swept wildly through the apartment, and flew towards a wall of the apartment. As early as when Yi Zan subdued Zhang Taiyan and Su Mei, the old and cunning Zhang Taiyan took care of the entire building where Yi Zan was. In other words, except for Yi Zan, all the other residents of this building have moved out. The property and ownership are all in Yi Zan's name. Even with Yi Zan's current identity and status, even if he forcibly occupied other residents' apartments, no one would dare to say a word. As the elemental dust pulled and eroded bit by bit, the entire wall was completely shattered and turned into scattered dust. The originally small apartment suddenly expanded countless times, completely enough for Shen Choeui and the others to sit down. Although, it was still a little crowded. This kind of power. After seeing Yi Zan's control over the magic elements, Chen Xinren couldn't help but swallowed, his eyes shining with disbelief. It's true that she is a shepherd, but her qualifications are very high, no weaker than Bai Shen's. Especially her affinity for magic elements is very strong. But the strength Yi Zan just showed made Chen Xinren feel a strong sense of frustration. That's not a skill, it's not a forbidden curse either. It simply mobilized the elemental dust in the space around him, and then destroyed the structure of the wall. In this digital age, where everyone changes jobs, this kind of power can only be achieved by gods. Everyone, sit down. Yi Zan said lightly. At this moment, Shen Choeui frowned suddenly and looked at the corner of the apartment. There was actually a red-haired girl sitting on the small sofa. Devil, priest. Shen Choeui swallowed, feeling like her throat was being pinched, and was so shocked that she could not speak. Not only Shen Choeui noticed Aaliyah's presence, But Han Mu, Chen Xinren, and other demi-priests all noticed the silent red-haired girl in the corner. Aaliyah's appearance itself is very outstanding, her delicate face has a hint of mixed race, and her curvy figure is extremely hot. Certainly, although she is a noble priest of the demon clan, or even a demon priest, Aaliyah does not have obvious demonic characteristics. Shen Choeui and the others were able to discover Aaliyah's identity because of the magical aura exclusive to the priest, or the elemental dust surrounding Aaliyah. However, they suddenly got it wrong. This is not a demon priest, but a demon priest who is countless times more powerful and noble. Even the 72 demon priests in the Abyss world must show enough respect when facing this kind of existence. If I remember correctly, the demon priest. The most powerful group, there are also a few lucky ones who have been promoted to level 10,000. Chen Xinren slightly half-squinted her eyes and exclaimed in a voice that only she could hear, one sentence. Indeed. Demon priests are much weaker than demon priests, but there are also 10,000 level gods, and there are 1-star gods that are about the same level as Yamata no Orochi. His family actually hides a real god. Chen Xinren's eyes burst out with bright light, and she was so shocked that her mouth trembled. Still the evil demon race god, it's not just Chen Xinren. Even Han Mu and the others were shocked to the point of being speechless. Shen Choeui and others are indeed called gods, such as God of Law, God of White, etc., but it is too difficult for them to step into that order and become real priests like Poseidon. Perhaps 70% to 80% of the demi-priests in a room will be wiped out. In the end, I am afraid that only Han Mu and Shen Choeui will achieve the level of gods. Even Shen Choeui may not be able to complete the god trial. But what about Yi Zan? Not to mention that he is so powerful. There is even a priest girl who is evil at home. Okay. Play like this, Su Mei. Yi Zan glanced at the great Sha demi-priests in the room and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, a little funny. Immediately, he looked at Su Mei and said calmly, "Make some food." After going to Japan for a whole day, Yi Zan and Quan Taian didn't even have time to eat. "It's just time for dinner now." "Okay, Your Majesty." Su Mei was stunned for a moment, and soon returned to normal. She smiled brightly at Yi Zan, opened the refrigerator, and began to pour out the ingredients. Ahem. Shen Choeui met Yi Zan's eyes and coughed a little embarrassedly. It wasn't that she was hungry too, but she just felt that the atmosphere was a little anxious, and she was frightened for a moment. Yi Zan turned his head. "Su Mei." "Hey," Su Mei responded. "Do more." "Okay." Zhang Taian set the table, and more than 30 dignitaries from the top of Great Sha, as well as a large wave of semi-divine level professionals, sat down around the round table in a neat manner. Yi Zan, of course, sat comfortably in the main seat. "What's the matter, everyone?" Yi Zan was holding a civet cat in his arms, which was the most powerful demon pet in his hand. He asked casually without looking at it from beginning to end, "All demigods?" But the sense of oppression brought by Yi Zan made Shen Choeui and others gasp. Chen Xinren shrank her neck back. As a shepherd, what she is best at is hiding at the very back. "That's right, demon god. We are deeply honored and admired to have a priest like you in Great Sha. So, I made a special trip to visit you. I have nothing else to do." Facing Yi Zan's question, none of the demigods present responded. Even the white god Han Mu showed a rare silence. Because the purpose of their coming is actually not simple, and they even have some ulterior motives. You can call it a test. After all, Yi Zan had previously destroyed the 13th team of the national team, and Yang Tianchang also died in his hands. As the manager of Great Sha's violent organization and the top figure in the entire country, Bai Shen and others are indeed qualified to come and see in this situation. You must come to Zhanghai City. But Yi Zan's level is now higher than them. Regardless of their strength or background, to put it mildly, Han Mu and the others have no right to inquire, let alone the right to speak. As long as Yi Zan thought about it, among the professionals in the room today, no one would be able to get out alive. There is even no chance of using the resurrection array. The demon god in the Abyss world is the god in charge of death and darkness. If you want to erase the life of a demigod, it shouldn't be too easy. I have no background, there is no other identity. Yi Zan stroked the civet cat and still didn't raise his head, just talking to himself. Shen Chuyu's boastful words did not make any waves in Yi Zan's heart. He also knew very well the purpose of Han Mu and others coming to him. Not only is it testing, but it is also very scary. In the territory of Great Shah, there is such an alien. If there are other ideas, the entire country may be like Japan, heading for decline and destruction. Certainly, Yi Zan can crush Shen Choeui and the others. Even if he has such thoughts, these demigods can't stop him. Hearing what Yi Zan said casually, Shen Choeui and others nodded. Fell into silence. They didn't believe what Yi Zan said. No identity? No background? Can it grow to this point in a short period of time? In other words, you have God-level power, but you just keep it hidden, and even go to school to be a high school student and clock in at a fixed time every day? How is it possible? However, since Yi Zan was willing to say, he also conveyed a message. That is, in the view of Shen Choeui and others, Yi Xuanqian currently has no ill intentions towards the great Shalong kingdom. This is a fact. If Yi Zan had any ill intentions, he would not face a Japanese demigod like Inuyama Ga and say, in the great Shah, gods are forbidden. Please give me flowers. 0 It is impossible to go alone to destroy the Japanese island country. It is even more impossible to accept a visit from Shen Choeui and others. As for Yang Tianchong and the 13th team of the national team, it's understandable. God also has anger. Gods are not to be messed with. Devil. The 13th national team has been disbanded and all dismissed. After a moment of silence, Shen Choeui smiled politely and said again, they are currently imprisoned underground in the imperial capital. The blockade of Zhanghai City was previously to protect the safety of citizens. It's lifted now. Shen Chuyu's words euphemistically expressed two meanings. On the one hand, Yang Tianchong and the others have been imprisoned, and Yi Zan can deal with them at any time if he wants. This is the treatment for the strong. In order to please, or to calm down, Yi Zan's anger, Yang Tianchong and the others will definitely not be saved. Moreover, in Shen Chuyu's view, the behavior of Yang Tianchong and the 13th national team was extremely bad, and she had no good impressions of these people. If she wasn't in a high position, many things couldn't be decided by her own temper. Shen Choeui would have wanted to deal with these guys a long time ago. Secondly, Shen Choeui also explained the situation of blocking Zhanghai City. Although this was not their initial idea. But now, facing a boss who can crush a 10,000 level boss, you have to have an excuse after all. Blocked? Can it be locked? Yi Zan smiled lightly. Shen Choeui and others stiffened suddenly, feeling inexplicably frightened, while Chen Xinren, who was huddled in the corner of the table, opened her mouth slightly. His petite and exquisite body was trembling. Hey Inuyama, something is different, Yi Zan spoke again. Shen Choeui waited for the priesthood to be choked, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. That's what it means. There are too many things, please help me. Su Mei, holding a large pile of ingredients, muttered. Everyone in the audience looked slightly sideways and were stunned. As for Yi Zan, he smiled lightly, since following Yi Zan, Su Mei and Zhang Taian have also changed obviously. Now Su Mei is no longer a fool who can be manipulated. She knew very well that she represented Yi Zan's face. Why should I cook and eat for you for free? Therefore, Su Mei generously called Shen Choeui and other demigods to come and attack her. Okay, come on. Shen Choeui was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said with a bright smile. Chen Xinren couldn't hide anymore. She only nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, followed behind Su Mei, and helped cut vegetables and boil water. More than 30 professionals were all busy working with Su Mei. Bai Shen and Yi Zan were left behind. Demon. Han Mu thought about his words, and finally spoke, looking at Yi Zan. Pity. Just when he was mentally building up and ready to say something, the doorbell rang again. At the same time, all the semi-divine level professionals in the room also turned their heads and looked at the direction towel at the door. Why don't you open the door yet? At the door of the apartment. Lu Qing raised the corners of her mouth, with an impatient expression on her face, and muttered to herself. Isn't he dead? A lot of things have happened in Zhanghai City recently, including the arrival of the national team, the invasion of Japanese Inuyama Ga, and the city's lockdown. In such a chaotic situation, an ordinary high school student like Yi Zan might really die. It's better to die, so as not to tarnish my innocence. Lu Qing was silent for a while and couldn't help laughing. She is no longer what she used to be. Not only was she promoted to S-level Holy Light Mage, But she was also admitted to Qinghai University. In Lu Qing's heart, her conditions are very good and only the apex-level dignitaries in the imperial capital are worthy of her. And having a low-class ex-boyfriend like Yi Zan will only lower Lu Qing's class. Very unlucky, no need to ask for confirmation. Lu Qing raised her proud figure, her graceful curves looked even hotter, and her smile was charming and vulgar. Originally, she wanted to come and see how Yi Zan was doing now, and to find out whether this guy had anything to do with the devil. But now, Lu Qing suddenly thought about it. What is she doing? Can a loser of Yi Zan's level compare to the great Sha demon god? That was the god who destroyed the Japanese island country. It can only be said that she has been disturbed by the devil recently, and she was a little dazed. Unknowingly, she ran to Yi Zan's apartment to seek confirmation. To take a step back, even if Yi Zan is really related to the devil, 4 or 2 liters may not necessarily be in such a cheap small apartment. If he is the demon god, or has something to do with the demon god, will he be just a trainee mage after changing his job? Lu Qing nodded and murmured to herself. Maybe it's just my misunderstanding. I haven't had a good rest recently. Thinking of this, Lu Qing was ready to leave. She suspected that she was in a bad mental state and had made a mistake at the time. However, the picture in his mind is still playing out repeatedly. The 12-winged demon, whether it is his appearance or his voice, does have a slight resemblance to Yi Lai. Of course, Lu Qing was too far away from the demon god at that time. She couldn't even see professionals like Yang Tianchang clearly. So how could she be sure that she could clearly see the demon god's original appearance? As for the Japanese Kyoto TV video, even in ultra-high-definition video, the battle of gods cannot be captured by the naked eye of ordinary professionals. Lu Qing was even more dizzy when watching it. She could only see the cherry blossoms exploding in the Japanese starry sky. Brilliant magic and forbidden spells intertwined. Naturally, I didn't see the specific appearance of the devil clearly. Gone. Lu Qing took a deep breath, ready to put aside all these random speculations, improve her taste, and get in better shape. In this case, the next time I see the god who destroyed Japan, Lu Qing feels that she still has hope. Even if you can't seduce the great Sha demon god, it shouldn't be a problem if you treat the other person as a pet, yourself, right? Lu Qingqi is very confident in her figure. Boom. However, just when Lu Qing was about to leave, the apartment door was opened, and a very pleasant female voice came from inside the house. Who are you? Lu Qing stopped, looked back, and said arrogantly and calmly, I'm looking for Yi. However, before she finished speaking, her pupils suddenly dilated, and even her body couldn't help but stiffen, taking on an extremely anomaly posture. His expressions were frozen, because Lu Qing discovered that the person who opened the door for her was no one else, but a famous figure who was famous enough to make Lu Qing collapse. Great Dharma god of Shalong Kingdom, Shen Choeui. Shen Chuyu's name can be said to be a household name. Not only TV stations often broadcast Shen Chuyu's various interviews and remarks, but even the cover of high school textbooks has the face of this Dharma god printed on it. Lu Qing could naturally recognize her. However, now, Shen Choeui is standing in front of him alive. There was also a cartoon-patterned apron hanging on her body, her hair was tied back, and she was holding unwashed cabbage leaves in her hands. What is this doing? Shen Choeui is cooking. Isn't this the most shocking thing for Lu Qing? What's even more shocking is that Shen Choeui is actually at Yi Zan's house. An apartment that couldn't be any smaller. It's so cheap that even Lu Qing doesn't want to come. But Shen Choeui is actually here? Crazy. Immediately, Lu Qing glanced behind Shen Choeui, and an even more explosive scene appeared. Not only the god of law was present, but also the god of shepherd Chen Xinren, who represented the highest level of the assassin profession, the pinnacle of alchemists, and the strongest magician in the country. Even the famous overseas 9-star glory knight Bai Shen. All of them were present. They are all at Yi Zan's house. Moreover, these national figures, dignitaries of the ruling class, and those at the top of the pyramid. Almost everyone is busy cooking food. This sight is not just shocking, but also has a hint of anomaly and horror. Yi Zan. Lu Qing looked towards the innermost direction of the apartment with an anxious and frightened mood. A familiar figure appeared. It was Yi Zan. Shen Choeui and the others are cooking for Yi Zan? There is no semi-priestly attitude, but like a maid or attendant, doing these chores. How could it be possible? Lu Qing felt that her heart was about to be crushed, and she gasped for air, as if her entire skull was about to be overturned. Yi Zhan. Is he really the devil? That great Sha demon god? Is it my ex-boyfriend? No, it can't be true. Who are you looking for? Shen Chuyu's voice sounded again, with a trace of suspicion in her eyes. Lu Qing hurriedly withdrew her gaze, her delicate body in school uniform trembled twice, her legs were shaking, and she was already a little unable to stand. I went to the wrong place, I'm sorry. Lu Qing stumbled to explain, her whole face turned pale with fright, and she had no idea what she was talking about. At the same time, all the demigods in the room stopped what they were doing and looked at Lu Qing. As for Shen Choui, she glanced at Yi Zhan. If you go the wrong way, close the door. Yi Zhan did not raise his head and stroked the civet cat in his arms. However, no one noticed, but he couldn't help but laugh lightly. With Yi Zhan's current mental strength, he could clearly see who was at the door even without using his eyes. What's more, Lu Qing's voice was also very familiar to Yi Zhan. However, what made him feel a little funny was that Lu Qing actually took the initiative to come to the apartment to find him. What's even more coincidental is that I also bumped into a room full of demi-priests. I'm afraid that from now on, Lu Qing's worldview will collapse. The ex-boyfriend she disdains so much turns out to be the great Sha demon god. Even the most powerful demi-priest in the country will come to visit him and even cut vegetables, wash dishes and cook with his own hands. I don't know what Lu Qing would think. This makes her feel worse than killing her. It completely destroyed Lu Qing's mind. Flies also need to be crushed to death. After a moment of silence, Yi Zhan nodded and muttered to himself. Even with his current strength, he can already ignore almost all the semi-priests in the country. Little people like Lu Qing and Zhou Han were no different from insects in front of him. However, Yi Zhan still did not intend to let them go. Because it's a bug, you don't care? No, after returning from the winter dungeon, take your time. Yi Zhan nodded and smiled lightly. He wanted Lu Qing and Zhou Han to fully understand his terror, the cruelty and cold-bloodedness of the devil. What's the point of just killing? Disintegrate the mind. Killing someone is heartbreaking. That's interesting. The more these two people are made to suffer to the point of wanting to die, the more torture they will suffer. Immediately, the apartment door was closed again, while Shen Choui and the others continued to work on the work at hand. The other side. Lu Qing, who was outside the apartment, was completely shocked to the point of death. She used the last bit of strength in her body to hurriedly press the elevator and quickly ran to the lobby on the first floor of the apartment. Impossible. Impossible. Lu Qing bit her lips tightly, her teeth chattering. She really has no faith in the law manifestation. Yi Zhan is actually the devil. And the room is full of semi-priests and big shots like Shen Choui, all serving Yi Zhan. The worldview collapsed. I understand, Yi Zhan is the descendant of the devil. Lu Qing called a taxi and fled the apartment building nervously. In the back of the taxi, she took a deep breath and understood the situation somewhat. Yi Zhan can never be the great demon god. How could a high school student who had just transferred to another job be promoted to level 10,000 so quickly? This is simply unbelievable. The only possible scenario is that Yi Zhan may be a descendant of that demon god. You know, Yi Zhan himself has no family, perhaps. The demon priest found his bloodline and now came to Zhanghai City to recognize Yi Zhan. A god, and a descendant of the demon god. Lu Qing opened her mouth, her face full of shock, and she could not calm down for a long time. After being silent for a long time, a trace of ecstasy flashed in her eyes. In Lu Qing's eyes, Yi Zhan is different now. No longer a useless high school student. But the second generation of apex level with a strong background. This second generation is much better than those playboys in the imperial capital. No matter how powerful the second generation of the imperial capital is, should Bai Shen and Shen Choui be allowed to do the chores themselves? No matter how fierce they are, can the elders of the older generation directly destroy the Japanese island country? Yi Zhan can. This is the real big benefactor. Great. Thinking of this, Lu Qing's eyes flashed with light, and she felt an indescribable sense of excitement all over her body. If Yi Xuanzhen had such a strong background, everything would be easier. As long as we can seduce Yi Zhan, Wouldn't it be possible to meet the legendary Great Sha Demon God? Certainly, even if you can't fight the Great Sha Demon God. Then you can get back together with Yi Zan, and you can fly on the branches and become a phoenix. He must still have thoughts about me, right? 5.4? Lu Qing half closed her eyes. A sickly smile appeared on her pale face, and she chuckled. Lu Qing felt that Yi Zan was also her ex-boyfriend after all, and as long as she was willing to sacrifice her body, she should be able to win Yi Zan back. Everything will go well. He seems to have a new love. Lu Qing frowned, recalling the scene she just saw. Next to Yi Zan sat a red-haired girl with delicate appearance. Her fair skin was as white and delicate as a freshly peeled egg. Facing such an apex-level beauty, Lu Qing felt a little inferior. Maybe that's her competitor. So what? After weighing it for a while, Lu Qing smiled again. She and Yi Zan have feelings. How can my new love compare to myself? Breaking it off with Johan. Lu Qing took a deep breath and already had a new idea, begging Yi Zan to get back together. At the same time, in the apartment, the episode just now had no impact at all. Everyone present is a big shot who has seen the world. Lu Qing is wearing a high school uniform. At a glance, she knows that she and Yi Zan should be students of the same school. Since Yi Zan didn't say much, it was impossible for them to say anything. The atmosphere was still as cheerful as before. Shen Choewi and the others were doing odd jobs and cooking, while Bai Shen looked at Yi Zan again. Demon, have you ever gone to the Abyss World? White God Han Mu thought about his words, and finally looked at Yi Zan and asked the question in his heart. His voice was a little low, and a little hoarse. Are the 72 demon priests as terrifying as the legends? The extreme, what is the current intensity? Faced with Han Mu's curiosity, Yi Zan just raised his eyebrows and did not speak. It's not that he doesn't want to say it, but that he hasn't had time to go to the Abyss World yet, and in Han Mu's view, Yi Zan's demon priesthood was naturally obtained from that second world. Seeing that Yi Zan did not respond to him, Han Mu swallowed his saliva, looked slightly unnatural, and spoke again. Sorry, I'm just a little curious. After all, in the legendary Abyss World, every demon priest has at least a 3-star godly strength. And the combat power is far beyond 3 stars. The most powerful demon priest, then the best among the 72 demon gods, have even reached the strength of a 10-star god, and their combat power is enough to destroy the galaxy. I just don't know if the information I know is the most true state. Perhaps, with the passage of time, the Abyss today has evolved to a more terrifying level. Listening to Han Mu's murmur that sounded like he was talking to himself, Yi Zan's eyes couldn't help but tremble slightly. 25. Destroy the galaxy? Is the demon priesthood in the Abyss World so crazy? It was more powerful than he expected. The combat power that Han Mu mentioned was also the first time Yi Zan had heard of it. Yamada no Orochi Boss and Aliyah, the demon priest, both have the terms Godhead and strength, but Yi Zan doesn't know much about combat power. He was silent for a while, then looked at Han Mu and said, "How powerful are Poseidon and the others now?" Han Mu was stunned for a moment, then raised his head. Poseidon? Now it's probably around 3.5 stars, and the power of the priesthood is at 2 stars. Yi Zan nodded. It's a bit unclear. It's only 3.5 stars, which seems a bit weak. He doesn't know much about combat power and clerical strength. Immediately, Yi Zan stroked the civet cat and chatted with Han Mu for a while, without revealing any information about himself. Instead, he got what he wanted from Han Mu. What an exaggeration! Yi Zan took a deep breath. After understanding the situation, he sighed inexplicably and felt a little shocked. After a professional completes 9 turns and is promoted to 1,000 levels, he can be called a semi-priest. Semi-divine rank can only enter the divine level, which is level 10,000, by passing countless god trials, obtain the godhead, and become a true divine being. Yi Zan knew these things before. However, from Han Mu's mouth, he obtained more valuable information. The gap between gods is very exaggerated. For example, the Yamada no Orochi boss, even though it has the strength of a 1-star god, or godhood, its real combat power is not even 1 star. But even so, the boss Yamada no Orochi ranks very high in the world of job transfers, and there are only a few professionals who can kill the Yamada no Orochi. And Poseidon. From Yi Zan's understanding, They are just the weakest among the old priests. Except for Han Mu and Shen Choeui, all other beings are stronger than Poseidon. Poseidon has a 2-star god strength and a 3.5-star combat power. According to Han Mu, Poseidon's combat power can easily destroy the world where everyone changes jobs, and can even detonate the star above his head, the burning sun. As for the Abyss world, those demon priests are even more terrifying. The weakest ones all have 3-star god strength. Doesn't it mean that at the end of the day, they are all in the tens of thousands of levels? The most powerful demon god has a 10-star god strength, but what about the combat power? 100 stars? Or 1,000 stars? How terrifying. If this is the case, wouldn't any demon god be able to destroy the Abyss world? Since Poseidon can detonate stars and even the sun can be destroyed at will the 10 worlds inhabited by so many terrifying demon gods still exist? Yi Zan frowned slightly, feeling a little confused. Immediately, under his words, Han Mu also leaked the information he wanted. Be it civilization or the world, they all have intensity and class. In the world where Yi Zan lives, the most primitive blue star, in Han Mu's understanding, it should be regarded as the weakest civilization in the starry sky and void, or the weakest wave of civilization. The intensity of the Abyss world is naturally fundamentally different from that of the universal job transfer world. For example, now Yi Zan can easily trigger the magic element dust in the sky and easily tear apart the walls of the apartment. Even if Yi Zan smashed the forbidden curse, Zhanghai City could be exploded into ashes. However, if he were in the Abyss world, he would not be able to cause such an explosive effect. The worlds vary in intensity. Everything in the Abyss world, even a grain of gravel, is indestructible. And in the Abyss world, legendary weapons, even divine weapons, are as numerous as gravel. Yi Zan was a little shocked. In his opinion, the copy of Winter that may be visited then will not be that simple. In today's world where everyone changes jobs and on the planet Blue Star, maybe he is already invincible? Can it be placed in other places, facing those endless voids, facing those worlds with higher level of civilization, facing those NPCs in the eyes of professionals? Maybe Yi Zan is just a speck of dust? Certainly. At this time, Yi Zan felt a little vigilant. If we say, Poseidon all have a combat power of 3 stars or above. So, what about those old gods behind the Japanese scenes? Looking at it this way, there should be priests who can crush him. Wait until the myriad races battleground is over? Yi Zan might be in danger. What makes Yi Zan even more worried is the natural disaster of the undead in Xu Yue's life script. Not only the undead natural disaster, but also the 4th natural disaster. The 4th natural disaster is a term in the game, which refers to the destructive effects caused by players. It is as powerful as the natural disasters caused by NPCs and can overturn the structure of the entire world. In this world, who are the players? What about those aboriginal NPCs, or professionals like Yi Zan from Blue Star? For a moment, Yi Zan fell into deep thought and couldn't help but frown. For the first time, he felt the intensity of the natural disaster of the undead, which might be far beyond his knowledge. It was probably not just a low-level god. It may be higher than one dimension. Because, in the Abyss world that Yi Zan now knows, there are existences that are so powerful that it is unimaginable and unfathomable. That is the one who is above the 72 demon gods. The Demon King, or the Demon Divine King. The 7 demon kings, judging from their bloodline, can crush those demon gods. So, how strong are their gods? What is the god-level combat power? It's completely impossible to figure it out. I can't even guess. Thinking of this, Yi Zan couldn't help but press his temples, feeling a little uneasy, but soon he returned to his normal expression. The world behind the scenes is indeed huge and powerful. But even so what? Starting from the Yamata no Orochi boss, Yi Zan has determined one thing. Even if he is a priest, he can still obtain the opponent's template. With this almost perverted ability, there will be no bottlenecks or obstacles in his growth. He only needs to kill a powerful god, and Yi Zan can be upgraded to 10 extremely terrifying levels of power. Demon, are you interested in going to the Myriad Races battlefield? Han Mu asked tentatively after chatting with Yi Zan for a while. Hearing Han Mu's words, Yi Zan raised his eyebrows. Myriad Races battlefield, he knew something about. It can be regarded as a place where the strongest priests in this blue star compete. Everyone on the battlefield is a big boss behind the scenes of this world. An existence like Poseidon cannot even be ranked. Except for professionals. There are also alien races from other worlds and civilizations on the myriad races battlefield, and even gods like Seraph may appear. No, Yi Zan responded lightly. He is indeed interested in the myriad races battlefield. However, if he really goes to that place now, he will walk side by side and stand together with the old gods of the great Shalong kingdom. After all, it was a bit uncomfortable. It is even possible that Yi Zan was produced by those old gods. He didn't like that feeling very much, being restrained and having no freedom. In fact, in the final analysis, Yi Zan has not reached the level of strength that can ignore the old gods above Poseidon, the older generation of gods and old men. If he has reached that level, it doesn't matter if he goes to the myriad races battlefield. Just like now, Yi Zan can easily crush Han Mu and Shen Choeui. Even if they sit together and chat, it's no problem. You can walk side by side, but you must have the confidence to lift the table too. This is Yi Zan's style of doing things. Secondly, after chatting with Han Mu for a while, he became more curious about the Abyss world and planned to take some time to go there and have a look. Anyway, now Yi Zan can be regarded as the justified demon god in the Abyss world, one of the 72 demon gods. However, maybe with his current strength, he should be ranked at the end of the bed among the demon priests. If you really want to go, be careful. The demons in the Abyss are originally symbols of ferocity and sin. Promotion among demons relies on war, plunder and death. If you are not careful, you may never come back. In addition to the Abyss world, the Winter Dungeon, that is about to open, and the Dungeon world where the elves live, Yi Zan has some expectations for some reason. These are his stepping stones, and being able to go to these places is a trump card. If he uses it well, he will definitely be promoted in a short period of time, reaching the level that Han Mu said, he can crush stars and suns. To achieve that, to the extent that it can destroy the galaxy and the void. A true god. The one who looks down upon the void, the one in power. Time to eat. While Yi Zan was thinking blankly, Su Mei's melodious voice rang out. She was wearing an apron and holding a large basin of boiled meat in her hand, and walked towards Yi Zan. Behind Su Mei, Shen Choeui, Chen Xinren and other girls handed over plates of steaming delicacies. Soon, the table full of dishes was placed. All the demigods sat down around the round table. Yi Zan sat in the main seat, and beside him were Aaliyah, Zhang Taian, Su Mei and others. Have a meal. Yi Zan didn't look at these semi-priests, he said lightly, then took out his chopsticks and started to eat. As for Han Mu and the others, they paused for a moment, tried their best to relax, and began to use their chopsticks. President Zhang. Come. Han Mu received several cups of tea, first handed it to Yi Zan with both hands, and then placed another cup in front of Zhang Taian. Ahem. Zhang Taian's eyelids twitched. President Zhang? Good guy. He never thought that he, a little old man who was about to be buried half of his body, would one day be called President Zhang by the white god of the great Shalong kingdom, and even serve tea and water himself? Zhang Taiyan sighed. Of course, he also knew very well that his current status was all due to Yi Zan and the monarch behind him. It seems that the final choice was correct. Zhang Taiyan smiled and took a sip of tea, extremely happy for his initial decision. If he hadn't followed Yi Zan, he might have ended up like Yang Tianchong and others, being imprisoned under the imperial capital. It is also possible that when overseas demigod professionals like Inuyama Ga invaded, he had already died in an unknown corner of Zhanghai City. Sometimes, fate is really tricky. After eating, Han Mu and the others left, and Yi Zan also contacted Joanna who was far away in the Yingmei Federation to talk about the transaction. Yi Zan had already thrown Inuyama's equipment to Joanna. Yi Zan is also preparing to sell all the various weapons, forbidden spells, potions, and some materials plundered from Japan. Except for relatively rare items like the Yukikiri, Yi Zan had no intention of keeping any other Japanese items. But Yi Zan has a condition: he needs to complete the transaction before going to the Winter Dungeon. The reason is very simple. Most of the members who teamed up with Yi Zan this time are semi-priests, and they are demi-priests countless times more powerful than Chen Xinren. Even some of them are real 10,000 level priests. The hunting group formed by the Global Beastmaster Association this time already represents the highest level of the entire world of job transfer. On a hunt of this level, anything imaginable can happen at any time. Yi Zhan did not intend to end the copy and trade again. At that time, it is very likely that he and Tiana have become hostile camps. 013503025 Filu 210,372,260. Everything is possible, but it is better to be cautious. Faced with Yi Zhan's request, Joanna naturally agreed. At the same time, she also took a picture of Yi Zhan's rainbow fart and boasted about his achievements in Japan. Golden Rose Guild. The top floor of the building. After Yi Zhan contacted Joanna, he came here. At this time, he was suspended in midair and did not switch to the body of the 12-winged flame demon. But behind him there was still a hard sun as dark as ink with 12 pressures. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Yi Zhan looked at the office inside the building. Xu Yue was drooping his little head, looking at the pictures on the computer screen. In the Japanese battlefield, Yi Zhan held an eternal spear in his hand and chopped off the head of the Yamata no Orochi boss. Every frame of the picture was so exciting that Xu Yue's eyes were filled with excitement. Risk the stars. Finally, she slapped her thigh violently and shouted, "Damn it, he's so handsome." Snapped. Yi Zhan gently knocked on the floor-to-ceiling window. Xu Yue was stunned for a moment and looked back following the source of the sound. His expression became stiff on the spot. Demon. Wakao. Xu Yue took a deep breath of cold air and hurried towards the floor-to-ceiling window. At this time, Yi Zhan just raised his hand, and the floor-to-ceiling window, which was originally strong enough to withstand high-level magic skills, completely collapsed. Yi Zhan stepped into the office and waved his hand again. A large amount of elemental dust gathered and reassembled the floor-to-ceiling window. Under the control of Yi Zhan, floor-to-ceiling window glass, like a digital module, can be changed by Yi Zhan at will. Xu Yue was completely stunned by the scene in front of her. Then she swallowed and pulled up the white silk stockings that had fallen to her ankles. Demon. Demon boss, what is this? Xu Yue twitched the corner of his mouth. He was really stunned and shocked to the point that his whole body was numb. But Yi Zhan just smiled, not much explanation. The space godhead of Yamata no Orochi boss has allowed Yi Zhan to ignore most of the power on this planet, and he can also change the structure and combination of most of the materials on this planet at will. Certainly, it is limited to the low-level civilization intensity of Blue Star, if it is a higher-level world. Even a copy of Winter? According to Yi Zhan's guess, it shouldn't be possible. What about the life script rewards? Yi Zhan looked at Xu Yue and asked with a faint smile. This time he came to Xu Yue, naturally for the rewards of the life script and the tasks triggered by the rank 1 stage. Of course, I also want to see if the script reveals more content and new information. Is the reward for this god-killing mission enough? Yi Zhan sat on the boss's chair, tilted his head back slightly, and looked at Xu Yue contentedly. A lot, it's beyond my knowledge. Xu Yue swallowed, took a deep breath, looked at Yi Zhan with an extremely solemn expression and said, "Moreover, the new living is beyond my knowledge." At this point, Xu Yue was about to cry. She forced a smile and took out something. "What's this?" As Xu Yue placed something similar to a fruit on the desk, Yi Zhan frowned slightly. "I don't know." Xu Yue clenched the corner of his mouth and explained weakly. According to the mission reward notes, this time the god-killing mission has been superimposed to more than 100 times the reward. In other words, said it was full. This thing is the final mission reward. It's just that I can't find out the detailed properties of this fruit. Xu Yue smiled helplessly. Yi Zhan nodded. The rewards for the god-slaying mission must have been superimposed to the full level. Yi Zhan not only completed the god-slaying mission, he even wiped out all the demi-priests in the entire Japanese world. If this can't make the task rewards stack up to the full level, it's a bit unreasonable. Immediately, Yi Zhan threw a detection technique, ready to see what this fruit-like object was. After all, Xu Yue is only a low-level professional below rank 9, and does not have such a thing as a godhead. Naturally, she is not qualified to understand items from a higher dimensional world. Yi Zhan is different. Name: Godhead Fruit Note. After use, you can obtain the 2-star Godhead, the Sun. What? Yi Zhan's pupils suddenly shrank, and his eyes suddenly lit up. I didn't expect that this fruit turned out to be a godhead? As long as this fruit is used, Yi Zan can obtain the godhead exclusive to the priesthood. Moreover, it is not an ordinary godhead, but a godhead that controls the power of the sun. The two-star strength. Sun godhead. Yi Xuanchen 330 took a breath of turbid air, and his heartbeat trembled uncontrollably. Sun star. For any civilization, it is the supreme existence, and the power of rules corresponding to the sun godhead is also extremely powerful. Amaterasu of Japan also possesses this kind of godhead. Only, his sun is only the lowest level sequence, not even one-star strength. It's like, there is an extremely huge gap between the sun in the world of universal job transfer and the sun in the abyss world. It is indeed a good reward, Yi Zan said with emotion. Xu Yue was stunned for a moment and asked curiously, a very good reward? Could it be a legendary weapon? Yi Zan smiled lightly. Legendary weapon? Can that kind of thing be compared to the godhead? This is the most important thing for gods, theocracy. Godhead. In the priesthood sequence, the godhead is the most fundamental thing to measure the god's combat power, such as the specialties, skills, and Lin Ming below the priesthood. It's not that it has no effect, but it has become less important in comparison. There is an extremely powerful godhead. Even if the god's strength is not high, the corresponding combat power will far exceed his own rank. I already have that kind of thing. Yi Zan glanced at Xu Yue. He did. Arya is a 3-star god. The golden compass that comes with her is a legendary +3 exclusive weapon, and she has the opportunity to be promoted to a higher level. The sword brought back from Japan is also legendary. In addition to these, Yi Zan also holds an even more terrifying divine weapon. After feeding enough weapons, the fallen angel cross sword will definitely regain its previous power. What? Xu Yue was shocked. She couldn't believe that Yi Zan was so powerful. Do you even have legendary weapons? Good guy, sure enough, it is the final big boss in the script of life. He is indeed a demon. What is the task of moving to rank 1? Yi Zan asked next. Xu Yue's life script is more like an auxiliary strategy or an operation guide. Yi Zan wanted to see the details of the next rank 1 mission triggered by the script, which might bring him some unexpected help. I can't understand. Xu Yu smiled bitterly. Then, she disclosed the new mission to Yi Zan. Mission Introduction. Killing God is just the beginning. Help the demon god destroy a burning planet. After destroying a star and harvesting all the professionals or clergy in the planet's civilization, the demon god will gain experience points beyond imagination. The promotion of priests is extremely long and boring. Only the death of hundreds of millions of lives can bring endless experience points. Final reward. Yi Zan's eyelids twitched as he looked at the mission introduction for the rank 1 segment. No wonder Xu Yue couldn't understand, this kind of thing was indeed beyond her cognition. The new mission is to destroy stars. To destroy a star, you need to kill all the professionals or priests in the star civilization. All at the same time. This is no longer as simple as killing a god, but to destroy a civilization. As for the final reward of this task, there is no explanation. However, at this level, the final reward will definitely not be bad, and it should be what Yi Zan needs for the next step. Have billions of lives perished? Yi Zan's eyes stayed on which line of text and nodded secretly. 013503025 Filu 210,372,400. This was a very important piece of information, and it even inspired Yi Zan. Perhaps, for life in higher dimensions, and for those demon priests in the abyss world, it is normal to destroy galaxies and even galaxies. Otherwise, how to improve to a rank of tens of thousands? Where do you get such a high amount of experience points? Plunder, war, death. This is the initial prototype of primitive accumulation. As for the destroyed civilizations and stars, those dead lives, this is not what Yi Zan should pity. This is the truth behind the scenes of the world. I probably understand. Yi Zan nodded, thought for a while, looked at Xu Yue and said, I'm going to the winter dungeon. During this time, you should follow Zhang Taian and Su Mei, they will protect you. If necessary, you can also contact Shen Choewi and the others. The intensity of the winter copy exceeded Blue Star's rules. It is impossible for Yi Zan to take Xu Yue with him. And this childhood sweetheart has the assistant Goldfinger in the form of a life script. Yi Zan naturally couldn't let Xu Yue have any problems. I believe that judging from the current situation, with Zhang Taian and Shen Choeui here, Xu Yue will not make any mistakes. Shen Choeui. Dharma God. Hiss. After hearing Yi Zan's words, Xu Yue's eyes lit up and she was shocked. After a moment, she nodded and solemnly agreed, right. Yi Zan's current level has already surpassed that of Japan and the entire world. It is not difficult to let a magic god of Shen Chuyu's level protect him. I go first. Yi Zan stretched out his hand and patted Xu Yue's head and said lightly. He dropped a mark on Xu Yue. Whenever any problem occurs, he can activate the teleportation circle immediately and come to Xu Yue's side. Space Godhead is indeed a good regular power, at least for Yi Zan now, it is quite easy to use. Is the Sun Godhead. Yi Zan switched to the posture of the 12-winged flame demon and floated above the void in Zhanghai City, holding the Godhead fruit in his hand. Go and see the Abyss World. After a short moment of silence, Yi Zan made his decision. The first time he used the 2-star strength Godhead fruit, Yi Zan was not sure whether the magic wave caused by using the fruit would tear the entire Zhanghai City into pieces. Secondly, Yi Zan also wants to try out how powerful this high-level Godhead is. According to Han Mu, the Abyss World is the real battlefield of Purgatory. He was going to take a look. Anyway, it's still early now, and there will still be some time before the winter dungeon is opened. We'll wait until Joanna contacts him. Take Aaliyah with you. Yi Zan pinched his fingers, and a golden halo shone in front of his forehead, constantly pulling at the huge elemental dust in the air. But at this time, Yi Zan suddenly had a new idea. Arya is a demon priest. It might be safer if you take her with you. It is also possible that Aaliyah going to the Abyss World will bring some different surprises? Yi Zan softly summoned the demon priest's entourage. Soon, the space seemed to be torn apart, and a perfect and exquisite curve came into Yi Zan's eyes. Aaliyah opened her mouth slightly, her eyes still confused, but she showed an extremely clear and pure smile as soon as she saw Yi Zan. Let's go. Yi Zan hugged Aaliyah, got into the magic circle alone, and headed to the Abyss World. Is this the Abyss World? When he opened his dry eyes again, Yi Zan couldn't help but his eyes brightened slightly. Looking along his gaze, this world was more shocking than he imagined. Or, this is no longer the world that Yi Zan understands, but more like a place composed of countless spaces. The ground was full of corpses and dead bones, filled with endless darkness. In the Abyss World, it is not that there are no stars. Above the endless void, there are still vast and boundless stars. Even stars like stars are as numerous as gravel. However, the abyss is too huge and has no boundaries at all. So, the dazzling and bright light became dim after passing through the endless space. No longer exists. Only darkness is the eternal tone. Secondly, even if Yi Zan has used the space godhead as much as possible, he wants to extend his spirit far enough to see where the edge of the world is. But the result was that all his spirit seemed to be trapped in some kind of vortex, completely swallowed up. Hiss, it's bigger than expected. Yi Zan swallowed his saliva, a little surprised. In the world of universal job transfer, the tiny blue star and the abyss are completely incomparable and can no longer be compared together. The vastness of the abyss is not simply tens or hundreds of times larger. Countless small spaces, or copies, as defined by professionals, are just small vortices, just floating in the abyss world, and how many such vortexes are there? Yi Zan glanced over and saw at least tens of thousands. There are so many species that you can't even imagine. In addition to the vastness of the world, Yi Zan was also shocked by the racial and biological diversity in the abyss. Demons are naturally the main body of this world, but in addition to demons, there are many undead beings, and even mysterious species called anomaly. In high school textbooks, there is also a basic introduction to demons, and you can even view illustrated guides for some low-level demon races. However, it can be said that after arriving in the abyss world, Yi Zan realized that the records and annotations about demons in the entire Blue Star were just a drop in the ocean of the abyss, and the countless illustrations and records about demons were just a grain of sand. In Yi Zan's eyes, in the dark world without borders, countless wars are taking place at this time. Countless demon races are tearing each other's bodies apart, and finally throw pieces of bones and flesh into their mouths to devour and digest them. There are also countless demon tribes and kingdom-like forces, and the two armies are confronting each other. The winning side is plundering the loser's resources and all the spoils. And what about the losing side? It is to die completely. Not death. All races are extinct. In the abyss world, races are dying out and falling all the time, being erased forever in the long river of time. Yi Zan took a deep breath and was a little shocked again. In such a world, what does Blue Star's civilization mean? The entire human race is just a drop in the ocean. If it merges with such a world, Blue Star may be destroyed in an instant, erased. A new world and a new era will never have a chance to be born. What is that? Suddenly, Yi Zan discovered that somewhere in the abyss world, an extremely shining light erupted. If that kind of light appeared in the great Sha Long kingdom, it would probably make the whole world shine like a sea of fire, and that kind of flickering brilliance light can also completely burn the whole world to ashes. But in the abyss, the light only illuminates a very small part. Immediately, the light rose and flew towards the endless void. Yi Zan frowned and tried his best to use the godhead, trying to make the space godhead chase towards the little bit of light and see the picture as clearly as possible. Pity. Still very blurry. The distance is too far, and the strength of the space godhead is too weak. Boom. A dull sound exploded in the endless void. The next moment, something shocking happened to Yi Zan. 10 burning and boiling. In the void were all exploded. Countless dust. No, that is not dust, but the vast experience values and data modules, or in other words, all the resources of the civilizations in the stars. Everything converged towards that small point of light. Hiss. Yi Zan took a deep breath. His heart was beating uncontrollably, and a touch of shock appeared in the depths of his pupils. That faint light. It's not a substance. Perhaps, he is a demon in the abyss world. Or is he a demigod who is weaker than the devil? It does not matter. What's important is that the demon actually destroyed 1, 2, 3 stars in an instant. Yi Zan secretly counted them in his heart. There were 9 stars in total. 9 stars. Such a terrifying scene. Even Yi Zan, who killed the Yamata no Orochi and destroyed the Japanese, felt a chill down his back. As for the stars that looked extremely bright, as if they were about to extinguish the fire, Yi Zan also knew very well that those stars definitely did not burn out, but had endless vitality. Even if you can see a trace of light from such a long distance, how can it be an exhausted civilization? So, that demon, in the moment Yi Zan looked at it, destroyed 9 developing civilizations with strong vitality. It is not as simple as race and country, but civilization. The same civilization as the world where everyone changes jobs. The same existence as all human beings. There were 9 in total, all of which were completely destroyed in the blink of an eye, disintegrating into countless dust and pure energy fluctuations. Only a trace of ripples were left, trembling in the void. Discovered, Yi Zan was lost in thought, but at this moment, under his spiritual gaze, the figure in the void, the unknown demon, seemed to have discovered Yi Zan, and it froze in light and stopped moving. Yi Zan swallowed hard, even if he couldn't see the scene clearly. But we can guess a little bit. Perhaps, the demon turned his head slightly and stared at Yi Zan beyond the endless space with his golden eyes. This feeling of facing each other across the void made Yi Zan feel a little numb. Snapped. He suddenly cut off his mind and stopped observing the demon god's movements. At the same time, Yi Zan also hurriedly took out the godhead fruit, sighed and said, "We must get the sun godhead as soon as possible. If the demon god who can detonate 9 stars in an instant really targets me, that would be troublesome for Guam." Ding, congratulations, you successfully obtained the godhead, 2-star sun. As a cold reminder sounded in Yi Zan's mind, he successfully used the divine fruit and gained the power of rules that could only be possessed by the priesthood, a brand new power of rules. This feeling, Yi Zan raised his devil's claw, feeling inexplicably excited. The new power of rules was completely different from Yamata no Orochi's space rule godhead. Yi Zan's first feeling was that majestic and endless vitality was born in his body. The sun godhead also corresponds to life, the never-ending, ever-knowing vitality. Yi Zan nodded. Feel the changes in yourself. The method of using the godhead is different from the skills. It is not a simple attack, but requires the priest to feel, understand, and finally use it. Certainly, if we must speak intuitively, After obtaining the 403 grid of the Sun God, Yizan's health has increased a lot. He even has an extra health bar, which is the health bar given by the Sun Godhead. If placed in a world where everyone changes jobs, it can be understood that this is a kind of backup health bar. To put it bluntly, even if Yizan really encounters a demon priest that he cannot deal with in the Abyss world and eventually dies, he can still gain health points again in an instant. The life blood bar given by the Sun Godhead. This is the light sequence skill? After obtaining the Sun Godhead, Yizan also made other new discoveries. In his attribute template, the skills belonging to the light sequence all lit up, and even trembled slightly. As if summoning Yizan, the sun corresponds to the sequence of light. Yizan nodded. Not just skills, but anything related to the light sequence, including forbidden spells and expertise, were shaking slightly at this time. Holy light shines. Yizan threw out a light skill, which was the exclusive skill of the Holy Light Mage, stolen from Lu Chang. However, when this skill, which is extremely ordinary and even extremely low level for the priesthood, fell, it caused quite a stir in the sky above the Abyss world. The scorching temperature and the ultimate bright light intertwined and flickered, and the boiling water vapor erupted in the air. The form of ripples jumps. It already has the power of the forbidden spell. Yizan's eyes flashed with surprise. This skill already has the power of a forbidden spell. It's not that Yizan's four-dimensional attributes are too strong, but that under the influence of his godhead, Yizan can make the most basic light sequence skills explode with countless times of power. This is an extremely exaggerated and terrifying thing. What if the forbidden spell of light sequence is cast? The affinity of the light element is also much stronger. If you use the light sequence treatment skill, the recovery speed of your vitality will also increase a lot. Yizan tried other skills and nodded with satisfaction. You can say that. With the blessing of the Sun Godhead, Yizan became the god of the light element. Just by raising your arm slightly, you can attract endless light and illuminate all darkness. In fact, he doesn't even need to use skills or forbidden spells. He just points his finger forward, and the majestic and surging light sequence magic elements can be blasted towards a target, and the effect produced is no less than that of the forbidden spells. Curse. He really became a god in a certain field, absolute master. And this is only the strength of a 3-star godhead. Sure enough, at the level of the priesthood, the most important thing is not the skills and forbidden spells, but the godhead. Yizan frowned, having a deeper understanding of the priesthood. Interesting. Yizan suddenly had some whims and murmured to himself. What if we obtain the Sun Godhead and the Godhead symbolizing the dark sequence at the same time, two mutually exclusive magic elements? What's the effect? Light and darkness are themselves opposites, if there are two Godheads at the same time. Is it possible to fuse two opposite magical elements? In this case, what will be the final effect? Yizan was a little curious. Try it if you get a chance. After all, Yizan has the ability to plunder templates, so it is not difficult to get another dark godhead. There are a lot of high-level demons in the Abyss world, it's time to harvest them. After obtaining the godhead, Yizan wanted to try out the extent of his power. He narrowed his eyes slightly and used the space godhead again to see where the demon priest had gone. However, this time, no trace of the demon priest was found. However, priests will not be found for a while, and there are as many low-level demon races as gravel. Yizan stretched out his hands slightly, and the majestic light element emerged, flying past like a hurricane, destroying all the living things in front of him, whether they were demons or Japanese spiritual species. All crushed into ashes, massive amounts of experience points, data modules, and templates all rushed towards Yizan. His four-dimensional attributes are increasing at an extremely terrifying speed. It's a pity that I didn't see the priesthood, Yizan frowned. Even though he has harvested countless demons, he still has not seen the priest. I think so. After all, the size of the Abyss world is not comparable to that of Blue Star. In the extremely huge map section, even if there are a large number of demon priests, it is difficult to see them. Where to? At this moment, Aliyah, who had been silent next to Yizan, tilted her head, and pulled Yizan's wrist with her white hands. At the same time, Aliyah pointed in a direction in the Abyss world and said with determination in her eyes, "Where to?" Good. Yizan was stunned. Aaliyah's state has been like this from the very beginning. She hardly talks and her eyes are as hazy as a child's. But, since Aaliyah insisted on going where she was pointing, Yi Zan followed her lead. After all, if you have to say it, Aaliyah is the orthodox demon priesthood. And a priest that all 72 demon gods take seriously. Soon, Yi Zan came to the place pointed by Aaliyah, and the sight in front of him made Yi Zan take a breath of air. 1.1 There are too many demons here. The whole world is densely covered, and all kinds of demons are crowding each other like ants, trampling on each other, and at the same time tearing each other's bodies, devouring the purest flesh and power. The picture is too shocking and full of blood. Demon? The demon god who controls the power of the dark sequence. In the endless swarm of ant-like demons, above the dark tone, a demon with 6 wings is raising his hands high, hot flames burning in his hands, and it seems that he is preparing for a big wave, cleanse and harvest the countless demon races below. And this demon? It's a demon god who has reached the level of a god. He possesses a lot of divinity, there are 4 in total. And one of them is exactly the dark sequence that Yi Zan wants. Name: Endless Looter. Prom: Occupation: Balrog Tyrant. Strength: 2-star God Godhead. Darkness: 1 star, Destruction. 1 star, Blight. 1 star, War. 1 star. Level: LV.23500. Exclusive Weapon: Flame Demon Saint Armor, Legendary +4. Combat Strength: 7 stars. Note: the endless plunderers in the Abyss world, even if they have not been promoted to the 72 demon priesthoods, have the potential to compete for the title of demon god. By relying on endless plunder, the fire demon tyrant Promi can increase the strength of his priesthood to compete. Theocracy. The detailed attributes of this demon's priesthood appeared in front of Yi Zan's eyes. The level has been raised to over 20,000, and the open rope degree is 2 stars. Other than that, the exclusive weapon that comes with it is a piece of legendary +4 holy armor. More powerful than Arya's damaged ancient compass. Plunderers in the Abyss world? There are 25 chances to compete for the devil? Yi Zan half squinted his eyes and nodded thoughtfully. The clergy, or gods, in the Abyss world are not just 72. The 72 demon gods can be understood as the title demon god, which is considered an orthodox existence and is superior to all the Abyss priests. But this fire demon tyrant has the potential to compete for the title of demon priest. In the extremely vast world of the Abyss, it can definitely be regarded as an extremely outstanding existence. 2-star god strength, 4 1-star gods, and 7-star combat power. Yi Zan thought to himself silently. Me or this demon priest, who is stronger? Nowadays, Yi Zan has not yet been promoted to level 10,000. Naturally, there is no entry for combat power in the attribute template. It can be said that even Yi Zan does not know how strong he is. But his 4-dimensional attributes far exceed those of ordinary 10,000 level priests. There is no doubt about this. After all the attributes, divine status, expertise, forbidden spells and other things of Yamata no Orochi boss were all plundered and absorbed by Yi Zan. If you add the 3-star godhead, sun, according to Yi Zan's estimation, he shouldn't be weaker than this fire demon tyrant? In other words, Yi Zan's combat power at this time should be around 7 stars? Or stronger, of course. Yi Zan is not blindly confident. Who knows what he will experience when he is promoted from level 10,000 to level 20,000? Naturally, one cannot be too careless. Boom! Yi Zan directly took out the broken divine weapon. When he held the fallen angel cross-sword in his hand, Yi Zan's whole body burst out with bright and sacred light. That was when the godhead was completely activated. All the light sequence skills are as if they were born with them. The vast and majestic light magic elements lie in front of Yi Zan's eyes, like soldiers full of order. Let Yi Zan control it. Demon priest. The moment Yi Zan was about to take action, Promi, the tyrant of flames in midair, turned his somewhat stiff neck. The pair of golden pupils flashed with dazzling luster and looked at Aaliyah. Yi Zan frowned. The demon god priest indeed had a very high status in the Abyss world. Prom looked at Aaliyah with a hint of awe and a touch of fear in his eyes. Leave it to you. Immediately, Promi glanced at Yi Zan, pointed his broad paws at the countless demon races below, and said in a low voice. Demon priest, demon god. You are stronger than me. However, you can't kill me, and you can't make me surrender to you. Prome's movements were extremely stiff, and the 6 wings behind him waved, and the high-frequency trembling feathers led him back a little distance. If you want me to serve you as your lord, I will detonate the godhead. Prome said seriously. Not a threat, it's more like stating a rule. Detonate the godhead? Yi Zhan remained silent and nodded. However, at this moment, Aaliyah flew in the direction of Prome, and her blood-red pupils flashed suddenly, as if she was about to exert the power of her godhead. A mentally retarded demon priest. Prome suddenly panicked and looked at Yi Zhan unnaturally and said, "Call her quickly." "Aaliyah," Yi Zhan called. Aaliyah finally stopped what she was doing. Prome's rank is over 20,000, while Aaliyah is only over 1,000. Even though this demon priest has the strength of a 3-star god, if he takes action rashly. Yi Zhan is not sure about Aaliyah. Can he defeat the Balrog tyrant? If Prome finally detonates the godhead, it will only hurt both sides. I can sign an alliance contract with you. Prome was silent for a while. He continued. After the soul contract, we cannot invade each other. Of course, if the combat power of either of us reaches a level that can crush the other, the soul contract will be invalid. Prome pointed to the endless demon race below, and took out a few star cores from his arms. As a matter of sincerity, I can contribute these demonic species to you. And 6 divine star cores. Yi Zhan narrowed his eyes slightly. Massive demon species can bring countless templates and experience points. And those 6 star cores. Naturally, it is the item 567 left behind after the death of a 10,000 level god. Previously, the Yamata no Orochi boss also exploded a star core after its death, but this star core allowed Yi Zhan to strengthen a legendary equipment. Nowadays, Prome gave him 6. Not only can it be used to increase the strength of weapons, the star core has a great effect. The most obvious effect is that it can be used to increase the strength of gods and the strength of godhead. Simply put, as long as Yi Zhan has enough star cores, he can train Arya's MB level god to a 4-star, 5-star or even higher level. The 3-star godhood that Yi Zhan just obtained can also be promoted by relying on the star core. It is indeed very sincere. Yi Zhan fell into silence. How to choose? Should he forcibly break out a war with Prome, or choose to sign a soul contract in exchange for short-term peace? In a sense, both choices are correct. As for the first type, Yi Zhan is not sure what kind of terrifying destructive power it will bring when a 20,000 level demon priest detonates his own godhead. Can Yi Zhan bear it? Prome seemed to see Yi Zhan's thinking, took a deep breath, and spoke again. You don't belong to the Abyss world?